Hello, everybody. Welcome into the latest live video. It's Friday. It's the 7th day of the 7th month of the 2023 year. My name is Kerry Holzman. Yes, July 7th, 2023, for those of you who got confused by that. It's mostly me. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I've got an exclusive. Once again, I want to thank the folks over at Minisforum for giving us an early heads up and giving us an opportunity to review units that, well, at this point, no one else has had the opportunity to review. And for that, I am very, very grateful. In fact, I'm going to share the love with you guys and share a secret with you here a little later on. So stay tuned for that. The NPB5 from Minisforum. Yes, that's what we're going to be looking at today. Minisforum has a new series of mini PCs that are introducing. Obviously, they don't all come out on the same day. And this is the first one here, the NPB5. And I'll show you what makes this different from the other mini PCs. They all look very similar on the outside in many cases, and that's a good thing. So they don't have to keep retooling the case designs. Minisforum has a number of different case designs that they seem to go back and forth between. In fact, I think all the mini PC manufacturers do this. And we're going to open this up and take a look at it here in just a minute. First, I want to say hello to all of my friends here out online joining us in the live chat room today, especially to the contributors, my friends in green, my friends in blue. Kicking us off with a €2 contribution is Paul O'Brien. He says, here's for a Gatorade to help cool you down. Well, they say June was the hottest month on record. I didn't think June was that hot here, but all this week and next week, we're looking at 100 and something teens. It's in 113 to 119 degrees from this point forward. And until further notice, I'm doing everything I can to just keep all the shades down, keep the place dark during the day, keep the air conditioner on, and try to avoid going outdoors as much as possible. That's my rule of survival in Phoenix throughout July and August for sure. Thank you, Paul O'Brien. Sarge Tech contributes $5 in Super Chat. He says, I love my Mini. I have imported everything from my other machine and made an image. Next is to max out the RAM and upgrade the hard drive to 2 terabytes. Thanks again. Which computer did you get, Sarge Tech? You got to remind me. Rick Lakes also received a mini PC from us. Rick Lakes is in Minnesota. He contributes $10. He says, hello, welcome in, Rick. Am I saying that right? Minnesota. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't do that very good. Oh, it's cold out there, don't you know? Oh, yeah. Peter Laycock joining us all the way from Bonnie, Scotland, contributes £10. Peter is like this channel's benefactor. Without Peter, half of these videos would not exist. If you see Peter in the chat room, he is sort of the godfather of this channel. Hi, Peter, or as we call him, Buster. He says, good evening, Kerry and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh is 71 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 21 degrees Celsius or centigrade, depending on how old you are. And we have a yellow warning for thunderstorms. I would love a thunderstorm. Well, always a pleasure and a joy to see our good friend Buster here in the chat. There is a 8 or 9 hour time difference. It's got to be about 10 o'clock at night in Scotland, I think. Planet Cryos with a $2 contribution. Planet Cryos, also another regular contributor here. If you look on the main channel, you'll see a couple of videos from Planet Cryos that he has shared with us very generously. And he also has other videos on his channel. Show him some love. Go over there, subscribe to him, check out his content. It's very well done. Our new friend, Douglas Burchell, joins us, contributes $5. He says, great to see you. Well, good to see you too, Douglas. I hope to get your computer and a computer out to another gentleman named Bill Wickens. These are provided courtesy of our good friend, Peter Laycock. I hope to get those shipped out on Monday, if all goes well. I've already got both machines. Finally got all the configuration and drivers and Windows updates and all that's done and put them back in their package. Now I have to find some boxes and some packing material and print out the addresses and then load them in the car and take them to FedEx. But I'm excited to do it, and they're really good machines. So the Vintage Tech channel with $2. He says, I can't watch. There's a tornado near my area. Well, you stay safe, and we'll be here after the tornado warning is over with. Hopefully that won't last too long. And you can always take your cell phone down in the basement. That's what I would do. All right. That's assuming you can get a signal down in the basement or that you even have a basement. I find many people live in areas where there are tornadoes generally do have basements, but I just realized when I said it, may have made an assumption there that isn't always 100% accurate. Okay. Randy Roblowski says, I'm on my new computer. It's awesome. Right on, Randy. We'll make sure Randy's blue in here. Add him as a standard moderator so we can recognize him as one of our fellow community members. I'd love to see this community continue to grow with like-minded people. And when I say like-minded, I just mean you're not a jerk and you're not a bully. I don't care if you want to. Some people want to, I don't know, feel like they have to qualify by proving how smart they are through some kind of a challenge. Clever. Oh, look how clever I am. That's just really annoying. What we're really looking for is just people that are nice. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, young or old. It doesn't matter your skin color, your religion. None of that matters. You're a jerk or you're not a jerk. That's it. If the checkbox is not a jerk, come on in. We'd love to have you. It seems that moniker jerk is available across all races, religions, ages and genders, going back through the beginning of time. So we're doing our best here to build up a community that lifts each other up. It's the best way I can explain it. And if you have any technical questions, you need some help, this community will offer their help to you free of charge with the purest of intent. Nobody's going to tell you to format C drive because they think it's funny. Because if they do, I'm going to boot them out of here because it's not funny. You will get honest and sincere help from our community. And if you have a question for me and I don't answer it, or even if I do answer it, I could answer it wrong, or there might be a better answer in the chat. Please don't be afraid to ask the chat room for any assistance, for any questions. Maybe you don't understand something. Maybe you need a little tutoring on something. Whatever it is, we help each other. And I love that the community helps remove some of that burden from my shoulders, because as the channel grows and grows, what's being put on my shoulders is getting heavier and heavier. So, just bear that in mind. And I want to say congratulations to everybody who received a free mini PC. We've sent out, so far I've sent out 10 of them. Is it 10 or 11? And then there's 3 more that are going out hopefully on Monday. Those should be the last 3. So that'll be 3, 6, 9, 12 plus 2 that ship directly from Amazon. That's 14 total mini PCs that we've given away thanks to the community. I want to remind you, I don't do these giveaways. I'm the middleman. The giveaways are made possible by the community, and I do everything I can to make sure they go back into the community from whence they came or from whence it was possible. In fact, recently, 2 members of the community reached out to me and asked me if they could send me some things for use on the channel, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. First, I want to shout out a thank you. I'm just noticing I got a PayPal contribution of $25 from our friend Luke Greenia here in the chat room. Thank you, Luke. And a massive gift card from Rob Foster. Holy cow, that is a very generous gift card. Rob, if you're watching, I hope you're watching. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you is not even enough. I'm going to have to make a special video just for Rob. And Frankie B in the chat room contributed $100 via Zelle. Thank you so much, Frankie. Very generous individual here. And as Rob has also given, and Luke has given, everybody here has been, this isn't their first time, and I very much appreciate that. That prevents me from having to make commercials like a lot of the big YouTube channels end up doing. The big tech channels especially, they're talking about products because they're getting paid to talk about those products, and what they say has to be approved by the product manufacturer before they're allowed to air it, so they can't even do it live. So everything here is genuine and honest, and the manufacturers, I have no say in anything that I'm going to say about their product. In today's case, we have a very good working relationship with the folks at B-Link, with the folks at Ace Magician / Cam Rui, and with the folks at Minisforum. And I have to tell you, there's a reason for that. And it's a cooperation that involves both of us, myself and the manufacturer, respecting each other's work and wanting to work with each other. It doesn't happen very often. There's a lot of companies I respect that don't want to work with me because they want to control what I say. They think I'm too much of a loose cannon, I guess, too much of a risk. And there are other companies that value that know that I'm being honest. I'm not there to create unnecessary drama or to, for the purpose of getting views. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible, as clear and transparent so that your expectations will be met. Because I've been a self-employed computer technician for quite some time now, over 2 decades, and I've been in the industry for over 3 decades, I've learned that the only time a customer really is going to be upset and wanting to leave a negative review is if you failed to meet that customer's expectations that you set. So it's job number 1 is make sure that I set the customer's expectations before I accept the job. I say, this is what it should cost. This is how long it should take. This is, the process. Things can happen, but generally that's how it is. If they don't like those terms, they can go somewhere else. I don't just go after the money. I want to make sure that the customer that I'm going to meet exactly what I told the customer to expect, and I always have a happy customer. So in this case, I want all of you guys to know that today, Minisforum sent us this computer in exchange for the review. There's no contract signed. Everything's very informal. It's just on a virtual handshake. And it's really a pleasure for me to work with them because they trust me and they see value in what I do. Some of these other companies, well, can't say that they do, otherwise we'd be working with them. Now, I'm also not taking sponsorships or products in just because somebody wants to send me a free product. Camera Girl can attest, we get a ton of emails from companies all the time wanting us to review their stuff. And probably 95% of it, we don't even respond to. So, and then on top of that, I'll take money from the community that's been contributed here, and I'll go out and buy things like some mini computers coming up from AliExpress from companies I've never heard of, and recommend whether or not you should buy them or save your money. So that's coming up, as well as some networking equipment and stuff that I've invested in, once again, for the educational content of it and my own personal curiosity, as well as anytime we get repairs in, I very much, with the permission of the owner of the computer, like to film that whole diagnostic and repair process as well. So that's what we got going on here. And I was going to say, a couple of gentlemen had reached out wanting to contribute some parts to the channel. And one of these I want to read to you because I was amused by it, because sometimes I feel like I'm the only one that's busy. This comes from Randy. And Randy says, I commented on your last live video that I have a couple of PCs that you could possibly use for giveaways. I'm always eager to pass it on and help others, so to speak. He bought several of these tiny PCs, Dell and Lenovo little mini PCs, to use as streaming boxes. But fortunately for me, I don't have the time nor inclination to deal with the headaches selling online, so I figured I'd reach out to you. Both of these are first generation. Generation 2 uses Ryzen CPUs. Units using AMD A-series CPUs. Good for basic computing stuff, has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth included as well. And with the power adapters, they'll have dual channel 8 gig memory that's 4 gigs times 2 sticks, 128 gig 2.5-inch SSDs. These take M.2 drives, but none of these are going to have M.2 drives. I'll put in a clean install of activated Windows 10 Pro, but I'm sure you'll probably wipe the drives and start fresh. He says, just let me know where to send them, and I will work on shipping them out to you expeditiously. And that's from Randy. So Randy, thank you so much. And I've got the FedEx tracking number, and I'll probably see those next week. And we'll do another giveaway and give those back out to the community as basic computing needs. I also received a message from, well, if I can find it now, it's been a couple of days, been a couple of weeks. from a package I think that arrived yesterday over at Studio A. And that came from, oh my goodness, I can't find it. Well, I might have to reach out and say thanks at a later date when I'm better prepared, because I don't have it flagged for some reason on my email. But sent us something. Anyway, I want you to know I appreciate it, even though I can't remember it. I got a million things going on. So unfortunately for me, I'm a little embarrassed I can't remember that person's name. But when I get the package over from Studio A and we open it up and see what was sent, we'll talk about it then. Randy contributes $2 in Super Chat. Hey, right on. Thank you, Randy. And Samuel Kowalski with a $5 and a $2 Super Chat. He says, keep up the great work. Right on, Samuel. Thank you. Davis Parsons contributes $10. Davis said, I purchased 2 of the Mercury AMD Ryzen 7 Mercury series, Minisforum. Their series right now is named after planets. This is Venus, there's Neptune, Mercury. He says, currently one is in a testing phase. Those little boxes are tiny. Hello to everyone in the chat. Yes, I've been hearing how surprised people are when they see them on camera, but then actually get one in person. People are saying they're a lot smaller than you'd think they're going to be. So part of that is probably the fact that I'm a lot smaller than you think I'm going to be. So smaller things by comparison. If you think I'm 6 feet tall, one of the things that the person, when I started working over for was contracted out at Newegg a couple of years ago, and when they met me, they said, "Oh, you're a lot thinner than we thought you were." What are you gonna do? I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I guess on camera I look bigger this way, but you can't tell how short I am. So I imagine in a normal non-homunculus hands, this probably looks a lot smaller than it does in my hands. These are very small machines and incredibly powerful. In fact, the one we're going to look at today is likely more powerful than the computer you're using to watch this right now. Maybe. Hetton Morton with $4.99 in Super Chat. Harry, the NAS box works like a charm. Thanks again for the review on answering questions. I had concerns about replacing a Windows 2012 server. What NAS did you go with? I don't remember any of this. I see Garfield Rupe joining us and Sherry McFarland. Always good to see our friends here in the chat. There's Rob Foster. There's the man. Thank you again, Rob. I don't even know what to do. Be your slave for a few days? All right, so today we're looking at the NPB5. Now, the NPB line uses a case that opens without any screws. Remember how I complain about how you got to keep taking the rubber feet off to get to the screws? Well, not with the NPB line. So, and Mike Visions with a £2 contribution. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. So let's go over to the Minisforum page. Let's start there. And let's take a look at what is in this box. Here we go. When you go to the Minisforum page, and I don't agree that Minisforum has done the right thing here, because when I want to see the NPB5, it says this is the NAB6, NPB7, and NPB5. But these are all different units at different prices depending on how you spec it with which CPU. Like there's a 12650H, there's a 13700H. One of the things Minisforum does that other manufacturers we're not seeing, like from B-Link, for example, is they offer the system in bare bone configuration. And this is ideal for me because when you order it with, let's say we go with 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD, you're not going to get the best RAM and you're not going to get the fastest solid state drive. But what you get is exactly, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I know I can do better by getting faster RAM and the fastest SSD and do it myself. But that also means I have to know enough to put in my own operating system and you know, drivers. But with Minisforum, it's super easy for finding the drivers. Not so easy with stuff you order from AliExpress. You often have to email the seller, and they'll often point you to a Google Drive or a Microsoft OneDrive link, which is fine. You know, it's fine. But this is a bit more professional the way Minisforum runs things here. So anyway, why do they put all three models on the same page? Well, they're mostly identical. Like the case, from looking at them from the outside, they all look the same on the outside. And as you can see, there's three different models here. And depending on which model, which CPU, sorry, three different CPUs, determine if you're getting the NAB6, the NPB7, or the NPB5. When you scroll down and you want specifications of the unit, it's going to default to the NAB6 right here. This, I think a lot of people miss this, so I want to take a minute to point this out. This tab here is details on the NPB7, and this tab here are details on what we have, the NPB5. And if we scroll down now, we can learn more about what this offers. Now, this is a 13th gen laptop style CPU. It's got built-in graphics. It uses DDR5 RAM and PCIe Gen 4 solid-state drive. They have a new cooling design that they're promoting here, and it's got dual Ethernet ports as well as dual USB4 ports. This processor has 12 cores with 16 threads and can crank up to 4.7 gigahertz out of the box. That's no tweaking. That's just how it runs out of the box. You'll see there's an 8% improvement from the 12500H to the 13500H. And as I've mentioned on this channel numerous times before, if you're going from one generation of the same chip, say in this case a 12500, to the next generation of that same chip, a 13500, it's about on average a 10% difference. So you don't have to upgrade every generation, maybe every 4 or 5 generations to get it worth your money, in my opinion. We take a look at how this thing is put together. This is the exploded view of the bottom, which has a 2.5-inch SATA 3 expansion bay, which you can use. I don't recommend it, but you can use it. There's dual channel DDR5, and of course a Wi-Fi card that you can replace. It's upgradable is what I'm trying to say, and storage that's upgradable, very easily upgradable at that. Continue scrolling down, you simply press on the lid and it pops open, and you don't have any need for any screws to remove. This is your airflow direction. Air is going to come in on one side and go out the back and the other side, which is how you want airflow to work on all computers. You want it going in one side and going out the other side. You don't want it, you don't want to have the air, different inputs of airflow colliding with each other somewhere in the middle. That would leave the hottest part of the computer from getting properly cooled or effectively cooled. So airflow needs to flow seamlessly like a river. Think of it if it were water, how it would flow. And then they've got a little tiny fan on the heatsink on the included SSD. Should you order this unit with a solid state drive, it will come with a heatsink on it. If you choose the bare bones, then it's on you on how you want to cool that. It does support 4 video outputs at the same time. So yes, you can run 4 monitors from this little tiny computer all at the same time. Look at all of the I/O. Look at all of the input output. There's the front where we've got a headphone or headset jack here. USB, USB, and USB. And on the back, there's our dual Ethernet. See 4 more USB type, no, 2 USB 3s. I see an HDMI, and I think, is that a display port? Can't tell. I'd have to, we'll take it out and we'll take a closer look at it. Yeah, we have HDMI and HDMI, and then USB 4 and USB 4. That's your 4 video outputs right there, right on the back. USB 4 supports a maximum 40 gigabits per second transfer, assuming you've got something that you're plugging in that can actually handle that. So it's pretty well ready for the future because there's not many devices out there right now that take advantage of USB 4. So chicken or egg, right? You get the device first, or do you get the USB 4 port first? So in this case, I think most of you will get a USB 4 port long before you actually have any devices that need it, with a few exceptions. But in general, most people don't have any USB 4 stuff yet. But when you do eventually get those flash drives or other items, your computer that you bought potentially months or years ago is ready for it. There's a bunch of reviews here. And of course, we don't know if they're publishing all the reviews. I don't know, but I can tell you Amazon does. And if we look over at the Amazon page for this unit, this is a $700 computer, but there is a coupon right now to save you $135. That brings the price around $555, $554, something like that. And that's getting the machine with Windows 11 Pro installed, which also means it's going to have RAM and a solid state drive in order for Windows 11 to be installed. This tells you all about the machine here that I've just more or less copied and pasted into today's video description below the video. And you can read through customers' questions and answers. Most of these pictures are the same as what's on the Minisforum website. And if we scroll down, looks like they're including 32 gigs of RAM at this price, which is fantastic. 512 gig SSD seems a little anemic. I'd like to see a 1 terabyte, but that's okay, it's fine. And as again, Windows 11 is installed, Windows 11 Pro, and activated. And the details on those ports: USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C by 1 on the front, USB 3.2 Type A, there's 2 of those. Your 3.5 millimeter audio jack, that's a headphone, microphone, or a headset, power button, and a clear CMOS. This is a dynamic microphone on the other side, so don't go jamming anything in on the left side. And then looking on the back, we've got 2 more USB 3.2 Type A ports. We've got HDMI there, another USB 4 here. Got a Kensington lock that they haven't highlighted for some reason, or what they call a K-lock. That's a steel cable that has like a T-spring connector that pops out when you turn the key, and then you can secure it down somewhere where no one can walk off with it. Typically used in offices with a lot of traffic. It's got 2 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. Got our second HDMI and USB 4 here with a 19-volt barrel jack power connector. Well, they made my job easy. And they're reviewing something different here. They're reviewing a UM690 on that review. Here we go. NAB. Oh, that's a NAB 6, not an MPB6. So slightly different. Yeah, these have not been released yet. So that's the other thing I want to tell you about. First and foremost, let's see if I can go back to camera 1. They don't expect these to ship for a couple of weeks. So if you like to be first or you want to be early, just be aware that it's not like you're going to order it today and get it tomorrow. They're still ramping up distribution. Obviously, manufacturing's done. And as you may know, on July 11th and 12th, that's Tuesday and Wednesday, this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, Amazon does a Black Friday in July. They call it Amazon Prime Day, and it's for Amazon Prime customers only, where they put everything on sale as though it were Black Friday. And here's your secret. There's going to be a discount on this on Black Friday. I want to call it Black Friday. If you're an Amazon Prime member and you want to save money, buy it on July 11th or 12th. Right? You didn't hear that from me. Just saying. I think it'll be 20% off. Is that what the discount is now? 680, what would be 10% would be $6, $68.90 times 2. I think it's a little better than what they're doing right now with that coupon code there. Yeah, there's the configure. Okay, I see. I was just looking over at the Amazon page again to show you what I was looking at. Right here, there's this where it says size. You can choose your configuration here. And that's why those reviews don't match up with this particular product, because this page covers, looks like darn near the entire Minisforum catalog. NPB5, it says there's 11 in stock. I didn't think these were even shipping yet. Interesting. Well, there you go. Things change awful quick. So be aware that you're choosing the right item. That's why I provided you the link in my video description below the video, so it takes you right to the product we're talking about. Because as I mentioned, a lot of them use the same case and look alike on the outside. Now, people often ask me, of all the mini PCs, which one is your favorite? And I've got to tell you, I don't have necessarily a favorite mini PC, or if I did, it with as fast and as rapidly as they're coming out with new models, it's hard to just hold on to an older model that I love when there's a newer model coming out that can do so much more and cost so much less. And you know, I've always been a big fan, and still am, of the Minisforum NUC i7X. That is, or i7X NUC, I think they call it, which is sort of this big flat slab of them. It's weird. I think it's like basically a laptop motherboard with a built-in RTX graphics card, like a 3070. So essentially, it's a laptop without the screen or battery or keyboard or trackpad, speakers. But it's really cool, and it doesn't look like anything else on the market. So I would say I would be sooner able to say who my favorite mini PC manufacturer is. And I got to say, Minisforum and B-Link, well, boy, it's like asking me to pick which of my children or which of my dogs I prefer. I mean, they're both very compelling offerings of these manufacturers. Now, if you step away from the, how do I want to phrase this? Let's just say there are lesser known mini PC manufacturers that don't have the wherewithal for promotion and marketing that the bigger players have. But you can also feel it when you buy their units. The units feel cheaper. They're made of cheaper materials. They generally don't have very good support, if any at all. And like I said, the drivers, they'll point you to like a Google page to download. And not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, I will say though, what I'm seeing coming out from Minisforum is something all the others are trying to copy. So they're like a leader in this space. And I would say the same with B-Link as well in that regard. I do want to remind you that the very first mini PC that I ever did was, you know what, I have it back here because I'm going to be doing a video on the Intel NUC line. But some of you are very skeptical with regards to how long are these things going to last. So this unit right here is the one I built on, it was a bare bones unit from Intel. And I do like the Intel NUC line, but they are expensive. You can find this video in my video library from April of 2013. And this unit has never had a part replaced. If I take it apart, you'll see the same parts and the same serial numbers for the solid state drive, which was an mSATA, not M.2, but an mSATA drive, as well as the RAM and cooling fan. It's all original parts. I've dusted it out a couple times. It's never had a problem. I upgraded the operating system, but I've never had to reinstall the operating system. And it still works perfectly. So it is well over 10 years. And the reason I'm not using the machine anymore is it just no longer has the power that's needed for the applications it needs to run. Those applications are more resource hungry. And while this machine boots just as fast as it did 10 years ago, it just doesn't have the robustness of a modern day unit. But when it comes to wondering how long do they last, in all likelihood, it'll outlast its usefulness. There's always going to be exceptions. Plus, there's always accidents. You might spill something on it or you knock it off the table. Who's to say how that affects its life? But, you know, if there's a power spike that goes through your electrical outlet, could kill the unit. But the unit in and of itself, this is evidence, this is proof. These things are rock solid. And look how portable that is. I can just take it and move it around and be done with it. So the reason I did that back in 2013 is I was very curious about how is this going to hold up over time? And how powerful is it? Can you really use this every day? That was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. Still works perfectly fine. Original mSATA drive in there, original CPU fan, and it was used daily. Now, that takes us to where are we at 10 years later? Holy cow, there's been a lot of evolution. Now, granted, this was an Intel unit, but you know, it used to be when you wanted a car, you bought a Ford or a Chevy or a Chrysler, and then all of a sudden, the Japanese cars came. You remember the 70s? And even though we, the Americans, and I'm from Detroit, Motor City, created the affordable car and sort of made it possible, thanks to Henry Ford, that everybody could afford a car. That Model T, as Henry Ford said, you could have it in any color you want, as long as it's black. They made millions of Model Ts, millions of them, way back in the 1920s. Is it even before that? So while Americans didn't invent the car, very much mastered mass production of it and making it affordable for everybody to own one. But they weren't very reliable, and that's the problem. And as cars became more complex, they became harder to work on. And emission standards were introduced in the 1980s. You never saw so many vacuum hoses, something called a smog pump, which just pumps air. It was a nightmare. Now we've, again, progressed well beyond that. They don't do that anymore. And the amount of horsepower we get out of a 4-cylinder engine is more horsepower than we were getting out of an 8-cylinder sports car in the 70s or the 60s, for that matter. So, in much the same way, computers are evolving, but it's happening much, much faster. So, as a result of that, things are getting better quality compared to what the Americans have been doing, even if the Americans sort of led the way, at least from my perspective. I never heard of a computer that small before until I saw the Intel NUC. So if they existed in other countries and they were already a thing, I'm ignorant to that. But now you can get a computer much like in the 70s, where you can get a foreign car, a Japanese car, that was cheaper, more reliable, and more fuel efficient than the American cars. And the American car companies took them a long time to stubbornly finally get with the program. And GM famously worked with Toyota at the what they call the NUMMI plant, NUMMI, that Tesla owns now, to figure out what the Japanese were doing differently, how they were building their cars differently, why were their cars so much better. And that, not surprisingly, was a complete disaster, that partnership. It's a very interesting history there. So as we move away from the Intel NUC to something more affordable, that leads us to Minisforum. So Minisforum would be similar in many ways, and in some cases superior in other ways to what Intel offers, but they're cheaper than Intel. So what do we have in the box? Well, first of all, as I was talking, I removed the warning here. It says, warning, we do not recommend customers remove the CPU cooler themselves. Improper disassembly may damage the motherboard and CPU. Could also reduce the liquid metal sealing. So they are using liquid metal thermal compound, thermal material. And then that's what's part of the secret sauce of what's keeping this running cool. And we've got a little owner's manual here. Inside the box, it's pretty straightforward. We've got our Minisforum mini PC. Now I want you to look at the mini PC from 10 years ago. This is a little bit wider and a little bit thicker and about 20 times more powerful than this. I'm guessing it's multiples of fast processor faster and more RAM, faster and more storage. It is superior in so many different ways, but remember, it's technology and technology moves quick. So when we're looking at a difference from 2013 to 2023, it's just like looking at the outside of a car from 1950 compared to the outside of a car today. The engines are made in a completely different process. The engines today are more reliable, computer controlled, anti-lock brakes, airbags, they have limited, what's the word? They have traction control. Anyway, you can't really tell from looking at the outside of the car. But what it's hiding beneath is incredible evolution of the processes of the technology. Underneath, we've got a box. Pull that little cover off. It exposes our power brick, which uses a standard 3-prong, basically the kind of cable that you plug into a desktop PC, which I love that. I love that it's not the Mickey Mouse laptop style power connector is those little Mickey Mouse connectors. This is using a desktop PC power cable, which they include in the box. When I bought the unit, Intel didn't include the power cable. Remember, I made a big stink about that. We've got an HDMI cable. We've got a little, I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you can see it a little closer here. But this is if you wanted to optionally add a 2.5-inch drive. You get this cable or this adapter. And on this end, it plugs into the, sorry, which end is it? I guess it's got a cover over it. This end plugs into the back of the drive, and then this little piece here plugs into the motherboard. So they don't put that in because most people aren't going to use it and they don't want it flopping around inside of here. We also get a VESA mount, and that's if you want to mount this to the back of a screen or even, I don't know, hang it off the side of a desk or hang it off a wall. And we get some screws. These little screws here and this little cable, these are for a 2.5-inch drive if you want to put a 2.5-inch drive in there. I wouldn't. It adds heat, and 2.5-inch drives are slow compared to just putting in a bigger M.2 NVMe drive. And then the VESA bracket has screws in the bag as well if you're going to use it, which I don't, but many of you do, and that's fine. And that is everything in the box. As I mentioned, opening this on the cover, oh, there's 10 pounds from Ian Gooch. He says, good evening, Carrie, from London, where it's a warm 24 degrees Celsius today. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for supporting the channel. Let me walk this over to the camera here so you can see the top, how Minisforum has the lid. It says open top cover by pressing it with your hands. No screw is necessary, and we're in. You can see our Wi-Fi card with the wires coming off of it. You can see our solid state drive with the heat sink on it with the little fan. You can see our dual channel RAM right there, which is made by ADATA. It's DDR5 4800 speed. And that's all you need. Everything you need is right there. And there's no reason to go any further into it. I mean, what? Furthermore, oh, let me show you this while we're in there. The lid has these little, the plastic areas that are raised with holes. That's for mounting a 2.5-inch drive, whether it's mechanical or a solid state. And then right down here, you've got your connector for that ribbon cable to plug into. It's either that one or the one next to it. It's one of those two right there for plugging that little cable in that I showed you. And then, of course, that cable will be attached to the drive, which will be attached to the lid. So when you take the lid off, if you decide to add that little cable, You want to be very gentle when you take the lid off, or you'll rip the cable right out and break it, and then you'll have to contact technical support from Minisforum, I guess, to get another one, because that's just not an ordinary part anybody just sells. There is no airflow in here. And why I don't recommend putting a 2.5-inch drive in here is you're adding another heat source. And granted, the SSD that's in here has a little cooling fan on it. The RAM doesn't. And there's no fan here. The fan is on the other side where the CPU is. Now, Minisforum does make computers that have fans additionally on the other side. A lot of people don't like the added noise and the added power consumption of that. So if you're not a very heavy user of I/O, then putting a 2.5-inch drive in there is probably going to be okay. But if you're a power user and you're doing a lot of I/O, I would go external with a USB storage, whether that's like a SanDisk SSD or even mechanical Western Digital MyBook. You know, if you wanted like 20 terabytes or something, you just plug it right in, you're good to go. And you don't have to deal with it or worry about any heat issues, which I would have anxiety. I'm having anxiety just talking about it. So I want to have a good computing experience. I want to make sure that my customers have a good computing experience, that their expectations are met. And then that's regard to noise, that's in regard to the computer's responsiveness, upgradability. And I just realized I didn't show you the details on this power brick. So before we get any further, let me bring the power adapter up here. You'll see it says it's a switching adapter. And generally what switching means is that whether you plug it into an American outlet or a European outlet, whether it's 110 volts or 240, it auto switches. You no longer have a mechanical switch like we did back in the 80s and 90s. The power supply would have a switch for 110 or 220. This all happens on its own now. So you just need a compatible plug for whatever country you're in. And the power adapter is smart enough to adapt. You'll see that it's a 2.5 amp maximum draw. It's not going to pull any more than that. It's 19 volts. I'm confused why it says 6.3 amps here, but it says 2.5 amps maximum. I'm confused by that. But this is our output. So our output is going to be 19 volts, 6.3 amps. So 120 watts. And this little diagram shows us the center is positive and the outside of the barrel connector is negative. That's called polarity. This is important because you don't want to take an adapter from a different device and plug it in and say, well, that plug fits like a glove, so therefore it's the right adapter. No, that is a great way to kill a device. I like to see manufacturers label the power adapters, and this one is not labeled. So what I can do, now look, it doesn't have to be pretty, but the company Sharpie that makes these indelible markers, these permanent markers, they have a silver one if you want to write on something that's black. And so what I'll do is I'll just put NPB5. Now look, if you don't want to write on your adapter because you think it looks terrible, you can get a label maker. But I'm telling you, don't procrastinate it, because if this computer gets separated from its adapter and this adapter winds up in a box with a bunch of other adapters, you're going to have to study where it says on the bottom of the unit. So let's say I lost the adapter. I wouldn't just look for an adapter that fits. I would look at the unit that I'm looking for the power adapter for and look to see if it specifies what the adapter has to provide. And it says 19 volts. So I know I need a 19 volt adapter. They don't give you a lot of information there. Sometimes they'll show you the polarity of the adapter. If the polarity is reversed, well, that's not good. Again, it could cause permanent damage to the device. So the other thing I do is when I'm putting something away, like let's say we're done with this review and I'm going to put this on a shelf, I keep the adapter plugged into it. And I just give myself enough slack that I can set the adapter on top. But again, if they should ever get separated, having it labeled, you'll thank me. When that day comes, say, oh, this is what he was talking about. This affects me probably more than it affects you because I have a lot of electronic devices. So I have a lot of adapters, and many of them will all interchangeably fit into things they would destroy if I actually gave them power. Speaking of which, we'll give this power, and I've already configured this. You can use either of the LAN jacks there, and we'll plug it into the capture card. So what I've done off camera is I have gone through the setup of Windows 11 Pro, put in the username, downloaded the updates, and I think I ran Crystal Disk Mark on it and put Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer on it. And then I said, okay, now it's ready for showtime, so we don't have to sit here and stare at the screen waiting for updates. Updates really weren't bad. It's Windows 11 Pro 22H2, so it's the latest version. And as I recall, I did not have to do the OOBE bypass NRO command. It gave me the option. I don't have a network, so I could create a local account. And really like the way these come pre-configured. It only has the what they're calling bloatware that Windows 11 installs by default. There's nothing Minisforum is adding from a third party. So that's always refreshing, especially after the the days are Dell and HP and Compaq were loading up, Norton antivirus and a bunch of other massively big pieces of resource-hungry programs that even when you uninstall them, still left behind quite a lot of mess. So this is just a pure Windows 11 install. Greg Casabona contributes $20. He says, hey, Carrie, like to see you live again. Well, it's good to be live. Thank you for contributing. Sure I caught everybody here. I think I got all the contributions. Got about 355 of you watching right now. Welcome in. We do this every Friday at 1:00 p.m. Pacific time, live, unscripted, unrehearsed. I figure, I'm a computer technician in real life. I've been a computer technician for over 30 years, 33 years. Anyway, when I go to a client's, when I do field service work, I never know what I'm getting myself into until I show up at the client site. And then I just have to figure it out. And, I don't want to have to leave and come back. So I try to anticipate what I'm going to need based on what the customer tells me. But if I've never been to that customer's location before, there's a very good chance that I might have to go back to the office to get things that might be needed that the customer did not disclose. And so when I do these live videos, they're just like when I go on site to a client's location. I just don't know what Minisforum is sending me or B-Link beyond what the website says. And even then, I like to keep it as genuine as possible by having as much of the experience, the first impression experience captured on camera. So I've spoiled that a little bit. But on the other hand, I'm also super excited to show it to you because this, as I mentioned, is probably better equipped, faster, and more robust than what you're using right now to watch this video for most of you. I'd guess at least 80% of you don't have a computer this good. And what's great is they're very inexpensive to ship. There's really no parts to break. Everything is solid state, except for the little cooling fan on the NVMe drive and the cooling fan on the CPU. There are no other moving parts. So they got to really mishandle it in shipping to damage them, is what I'm trying to tell you. And it's done. And don't put it past the shippers. They can damage them. But it's harder to damage these than it is a 40-pound desktop computer with a heavy graphics card that's, leaning to one side and, sitting in a socket that's very shallow to hold it in place. Are we ready to turn it on? Let me turn on my window capture. And then I'm going to put myself in the corner where I belong. Just like that. And I guess I can leave the cover off. It's sort of like leaving the hood up on the car when you turn the car on. I'll hit the power button. 3. I'm going to count down so you can see how long it takes to boot from a cold start. 3, 2, 1, power. Okay, blue light on the front. There is no hard drive activity light. There's no RGB. There's no liquid cooling. This isn't something really designed for overclocking either. Whether or not you can, I don't really care. It's already so fast, I don't understand the point of why people would do that. But some people have more time than I have, and might be willing to damage something just because they're bored. There's certainly enough other tech channels out there that have burned up CPUs and GPUs while they're trying to overclock them. I don't have that kind of a budget here. I can't afford to do that. Not to mention what they're spending in the cooling, is it liquid nitrogen or whatever they're using to cool. I don't even know where you would buy a tank of that, let alone have the money to afford it. So for the vast majority of computer owners, this computer is right out of the box, ready to rock and roll for you. No assembly required, unless you get the bare bones unit, which is pretty cool, you know, that you can populate the RAM and SSD yourself if you want to do that. RAM and solid state drives are the cheapest I've ever seen them. And from what I understand, the prices are going to continue to get lower in the coming weeks and coming months. At some point, they'll bottom out. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. I can only tell you what I've heard. And I don't know if what I heard is accurate any more than anybody else who thinks they can predict the future. Bajin Guy said it was a little under 20 seconds. All right. Well, remember, when it first turns on, it's got to go through that whole post cycle. I imagine if we do a restart, if I go over here, let's see how long it takes to restart while we are measuring things. You'll see the shutdown's going to happen within just a matter of seconds. There. And now the BIOS will reinitialize again. You'll notice that when the screen goes to right there. That's our power on self-test, POST, post. And then the little toilet bowl flushing is how Windows wants to tell you it's busy. And that's loading. And this is the factory install of Windows 11 with me optimizing it with my optimization tool and removing unwanted apps that Microsoft Windows 11 puts on, that Minisforum did not put on. Just part of a Windows 11 install. If we take a look now, see if I go full screen over here so I can see what you guys see. I ran Crystal Diskmark on the included drive, and these are the numbers I got. So obviously it's a Gen 4 drive, but Gen 4 drives can get up to 7,000 on the reads if you want to spend more money. Sort of had an informal survey on the YouTube channel the other day where I asked the audience, for the same amount of money, would you rather have twice the capacity of storage or twice the speed of storage? So in other words, if you could buy a fast 1 terabyte drive for $100 or a 2 terabyte drive that twice as big but ran at half the speed, which would you prefer? Would you prefer the storage space or would you prefer the storage speed? And one answer somebody gave was, you can have both if you want to pay for it. This is true. If you want to combine capacity and performance, you can easily double the price of the drive of a similar capacity that runs at half the performance. Most people aren't going to see much difference between 4,800 and 7,000, quite honestly. If we got a high performance drive, 7,300 is probably about the maximum we could get from like a Western Digital SN850X, or Sabrent makes one, the P44 from SK Hynix. These are your high performance drives, and you see by the prices, they're quite pricey compared to other drives of similar capacity that don't run at those speeds. So anyway, if we look now in the device manager, which I can go right here, right click on the start menu, choose device manager. When it comes to the network adapters, we've got 2 Intel i225V LAN adapters. So those are very well known and respected. And we've got something called an RZ. Can't see it from here. Let me get my glasses. Trying to see what that Wi-Fi adapter is. An RZ608 Wi-Fi 6E. Now that's super impressive. A lot of the mini PCs being sold today will have Wi-Fi 6, but not 6E. I already have a Wi-Fi 7 router. I don't have any Wi-Fi 7 wireless devices because there's none that exist yet, but they're coming. So it's nice that both are made by Intel. That means drivers are never going to be a problem to locate and keep updated. Again, if we look at, what else can we look at? We do have a TPM module that's under security devices here. So we are truly Windows 11 compatible. And if I right click again on the system, on the Windows Start button, go to System, we can get the details of our processor. My nose is super itchy today. Okay. You want to stick your finger in there and itch it for me? Oh, we've got a 13th gen Intel Core i5-13500H that defaults at 2.6, but it will ramp up in turbo to 4.7. From the factory, we got 16 gigs of RAM. 0.2 of that is being used for our onboard graphics. Graphics need RAM. Whenever you buy a video card, you'll see the video card comes with RAM. Since our video card is part of the CPU, it has to borrow, I think it's stealing, it has to borrow some of our system RAM for that. So 32 gig would be ideal in this configuration. 16 gig is fine. 32 would be more ideal with a 1 terabyte storage. That's how I would configure it if I were configuring it for me. I'd probably put 2 terabytes of storage in it actually. But I mean, just out of the gate, 16 gigs and 512 is fine. But for me, I would double the RAM and quadruple the storage. I'd go 32 gigs on the RAM, and I would go 2 terabytes on the storage. I wouldn't go more than that on Gen 4 because I think I would have heat issues. I mean, they already potentially have heat issues on a 512, which is why there's that heatsink. And yes, you can remove that heatsink and put it onto a different drive. Presumably, the drive better not have chips on the underside of it, or that may not fit. That's the other problem. Some NVMe drives only have chips on one side, some are chips on both sides. If they have chips on both sides, then they're thicker. And if it's thicker, then you need a different heatsink to adapt to that. There you'll see we've got Windows 11 Pro, 22H2. I've done all the updates, but we can go back and just double check. If I hit Windows Update real quick, maybe there'll be an antivirus update or, I don't know. Shouldn't be much there because I just did this last night, I think it was. Sure, and McFarland said, I've missed a lot of live streams and chat sessions because of a busy family life and work. Well, you're excused, Sherry. I won't, I cannot punish you for that or hold you. I can't say you're not responsible is what I'm trying to say. It's a valid excuse, no problem. It's all good. Do any of you have any questions for me in regards to this particular machine? So a lot of times we look at these machines and we're like, well, this kind of looks like the last one, except you know, I'm kind of curious. I need a Gen 3.2 by 2, a USB 3.2 Generation 2 USB port that can do 20 gigabits per second in order to get the 2000 megabytes per second out of that little SanDisk external SSD I've got. And I'm curious if this will do that. Let me go to the other room, find my SanDisk. Here it is, exactly where I left it. I'll bring this over to the camera so y'all can see this. Oh, wait a minute. I can't see. Hold on a second. Let me temporarily go back to camera 1, full screen. There, that's better. Now I can walk over to the camera. This is the SanDisk Extreme Pro. It's a portable solid-state drive that claims it can do 2,000 megabytes per second. Now, all the other SanDisk drives I have that look like this, I've even got a Western Digital that looks like this. SanDisk and Western Digital are the same company now. Western Digital bought them a couple of years ago. They all do about 1,000 megabytes per second, which I'm very happy with, because prior to that, the fast ones were doing 400 to 500, and that doubled to 1,000, and then it doubled again to 2,000. And that means the next generation of these is going to be what? 4,000, that's right. So that's the way technology moves. And then the one after that, 8,000. That's the direction we're moving. Now, I don't know that this will support this drive or not, but we can find out. Essentially, on most computers that I plug this into, I'm getting a little over 1,000 megabytes per second. But I've had a handful of computers that can actually transmit data at the 2,000 megabytes per second. Is this one of them? I don't know. Let me plug it in and find out. Let's plug it into the front USB4 port. And let me go back over to HDMI input here. And you can see there it's blank. There's nothing on it. And let me go full screen so I can see. Again, when I go full screen, you guys aren't seeing anything happening. It's something for me on my end. Trust me, it makes a big difference over here on this side of the camera. When I say that, I'm telling you because I want you to be aware if I'm not doing things as quickly as you think it's going to happen, it's because I can't see it as well as you can see it until I go full screen. And when I go full screen, that means I can't see your comments in the chat room. Well, actually, if I look over here, I can. Well, you can't see me anyway. So we're going to go over here. We're going to choose that D drive. That's our SanDisk drive, which is a 2 terabyte drive. And I'll just do the sequential read and write here. And if this is at 1,000 or a little over 1,000, then that answers my question. I don't need to do the whole test. I'd really like to see 2,000 coming out of this. Yeah, so we're still stuck at 1,000 here. And I want to check, we'll stop that, and then I'm going to eject it. And I want to try the rear USB to see if that makes any difference. We'll go around to the back. Try one of these USB ports back here. There it goes. Once again, I imagine it's going to be the same, but we'll try this one more time. And is it going to be the same? Yes. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to pull 2,000 out of this one, but there's still a chance. Maybe if we try the Type A ports. When you get one of these SanDisk SSDs, in the box, it comes with a Type C to Type A cable. So obviously, it's always going to be Type C to the back of the drive itself. And I usually keep it on Type C to Type C because that's usually the type of cable that's better suited at handling those faster speeds. However, you should be able to achieve this on Type A as well, provided you've got a cable that's capable. Not all USB cables are built the same. Some only do power, some only do data, and some only do data at a certain speed. So when you're buying those ultra inexpensive USB cables, that's fine if you're just looking for a charging cable. But if what you want is, either fast charging, or you want the ability to both charge and move data, and you want to move the data at USB 3 speeds, you're going to notice there's a significant price difference in USB cables. And it's not because one is ripping you off necessarily. There might be, but generally it's because the cable is better made. So you definitely want to use the cables that come with the solid state external drives to get the best performance out of them. So I'm going to plug this in back here on this USB port here in the back, and then we'll switch back over to the desktop here. And let's see if that has made any difference. It is entirely possible there is one USB port that runs faster than the rest. I'm not counting on it. However, I am very curious. And honestly, it's not like it's really going to make that much difference in my life. I'm not really using this machine. Well, first of all, I'm not using it at all, but I wouldn't be using it for transferring so many files that, you know, having 2,000 megabytes per second would be required, but it sure would be nice. That's all I'm saying. All right, so that is the same. I'm going to unplug this. Yeah, I'm not going to disconnect it first. And I just want to go around to the front of the unit and try the last remaining USB Type A on the front. Also, what can affect your speeds is not plugging the cable all the way in. I'm famous for that. Sometimes I'm like, hey, how come my screen's not showing up? Because I didn't push the HDMI cable all the way in. Hey, how come my USB device is acting weird? Because I didn't plug the USB device all the way in. You want to push it in until it bottoms out. So just bear that in mind. I do that all the time. One last test here. I expect it'll probably be in the thousands. Usually, if they're all running at that speed, it's because they're sharing the same chip technology on the USB ports. But every once in a while, I will run into a machine where this can, in fact, hit that 2,000 speed. See, like this is taking an awfully long time. Here we go. It's just started the test. Yeah, so you see that number, why it's so low? That happened because I didn't put the USB drive all the way in. So I'm going to unplug the USB cable from both the unit and from the drive and the computer. I'm going to push that Type-C end all the way into the back of the drive and make sure I push that Type-A in all the way on the front. Give that a second to, there it is, so it found it. And let's try that test one more time. The other thing that could be happening is the two USB ports on the front may be sharing the channel, and because I have my keyboard and mouse plugged in, well, I can already tell it's faster. I was going to say another USB device could be leaching the power or bandwidth from the other neighboring USB cables. So if you ever have a USB device that's not functioning properly, try plugging it into a different USB port. Or if the USBs are side by side, take what's ever already plugged into it and move that somewhere else. So as you can see, we're pretty well universally at a little over 1,000 across the board on all of the USB ports, front or back. They're all apparently identical. So good to know. And you'll see how excited I get when I get a machine up here where you actually see this thing do 2,000. But yeah, to see 2,000, you need a USB 3.2 generation 2 that can do 20 gigabits per second. And even though the USB4 can do 40 gigabits per second, I don't have an answer why we're not seeing the 2,000 speed, unless maybe there's a firmware update or something available for the SanDisk external drive. It's not that critical. And I want to emphasize, it's not as though I have a need for 2,000 megabytes per second, but I know the device is capable of it. That doesn't necessarily mean it benefits me to have it. I just want to see it. So in any event, I'll unplug that. SueCool98 Lawrence contributes $20 and says, thank you for all you do and the help that you give. Well, thank you for being a part of this amazing community. I appreciate your generosity and your kind words and your generosity. Thank you for helping to support the channel. This is like SanDisk didn't send us that. If you see these external drives, I'm buying those. And it wasn't cheap, but you don't see many that do 2,000. Not Your Typical Guy in the chat room asks, do you recommend this mini PC, price to performance compared to others in the current market? When you get this on sale, absolutely yes, price to performance. It's a great value. It's very well made. It's easy to work on. It's very robust, very responsive. It's well equipped, you know, especially the way they sent it with the 16 gigs of RAM, the 512 gig storage isn't, you know, storage needs a little bit more. I would say 1 terabyte minimum. Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth, a lot of I/O. You can power up to 4 monitors. And it's a very reputable manufacturer who's been around over 10 years. So it's not like they're some unheard of little Chinese company we've never heard of. They've been around a long time. And I think they've been, I always confuse them with Beelink, because Beelink is also a very good mini PC manufacturer. If I had my choice of Minisforum or Beelink, well, that's a tough one. I would choose Minisforum in this case because of how easy it is to get into it. You know, Minisforum, they make amazing machines, but they like to put rubber feet. Is it Minisforum that does that? They put the rubber feet over the screws, and that means as you have to remove the little rubber feet to take out the screw. And every time you take the feet off, they never quite stick as good. And the more you do that, the sooner you're going to be left with feet falling off. So I wish they would change that design universally across the board. Some machines, most machines, you have to remove the rubber feet. Some you don't. And this one, you don't even have to deal with screws. It's like we went from one extreme to the other here. So any of the NPB line or NAB9, NAB or NPB, I'm a big fan of those for a work machine. So if you're somebody in an office, this is an ideal office computer. I don't care if it's a home office or if you just use your computer for office type things, which means anything but gaming, unless your idea of gaming is solitaire. Obviously, it's going to play solitaire fine. And it can do some gaming. Don't get me wrong. I suppose League of Legends would probably play on that. But I'll tell you what. I went to test a PC that was ordered from AliExpress for an upcoming video. And Camera Girl has a Steam account. And I wanted her to evaluate if the onboard graphics were, you know, how she would rate them for the games that she plays, like Star Wars, Revenge of the Jedi. What's it called? Order of the Jedi. Anyway, this is a Star Wars game. And then she plays Rift, and she plays Terra. She plays World of Warcraft. And it took forever to download these games. I'm talking overnight. So I said, you know, if you want a game, just do it on a console, do it on an Xbox, do it on a PlayStation. I turn on the Xbox. You know what it said? Because I hadn't turned the Xbox on in a few months. And I want you to understand where I'm coming from here. When I wanted to play a game, the only load time you had was sticking the quarter in the slot. All right? And now I turn on the Xbox after a few months, so I can just want to play a game and get it out of my system, right? And here's what I saw. Let me bring this over to the camera and show you what I saw here. It says your Xbox needs an update. You see what the time remaining is? That's going to take a half an hour. So finally the Xbox updates, right? And I'm like, okay, now I can play the game. Not exactly. If you look at this screen here, let me go back. Is it going to let me go back? We go back to this screen here. $5 hours. And then there were other games listed below that were going to be of equal or greater size that were each going to take 5 to 6 hours. I let that run overnight. And when I woke up and showered and went back into the living room where the Xbox is, it had gone to sleep and I had to wake it up. And then it continued needing another 3 hours. What? And here's what's worse. On the machine I asked Camera Girl to test, we went through all of this. We did all the downloading. We waited hours, hours, hours. And when she goes to launch Rift, it says, error, can't load. Are you kidding me? This is what you do for fun? Holy cow. That's not gaming. The massive bandwidth that consumes downloading these games are 40, 60, 80 gigs each. That's insane. So when I tell you that gaming is an expensive luxury on computers, you not only need a, $1,000 plus graphics card, you need a very high-speed broadband internet connection, which is likely north of $100 a month just for that, if you don't want to sit there all day waiting for downloads. And you're going to need a computer that has the memory and the processor capable of playing that game. So all in, you need the time.
I just say, duh.
Word from the peanut gallery. This isn't how it was, man. That's not what gaming was. Gaming was you went into the arcade, you put your quarter in the slot, and you played the game. You didn't sit around waiting for things to load. And then after they take forever to load, you go to play it and it crashes and it won't even tell you, it tells you why, but it's some cryptic message. I don't know, it wants something. But, you got to wait till you do all of that before you can actually go to play the game to find out that the game won't play. Holy cow. So now I can add that on my what to fix list. Like I don't have enough stuff going on in PC repair. I got to figure out why a stupid game won't load. So then I go to the Xbox and then that wants to download for days. There's no fun in that for me. I don't know how you could find that enjoyable at all. I don't get it. You need to have a lot of money and you need to have a lot of time. And I know people with a lot of money who don't have much time. And I know more people who have a lot of time, but they don't have much money. The number of people I know that have both time and money to tolerate that are children living at home. And clearly nothing else better to do. It's out of control. That is absolutely preposterous, unacceptable. That's not fun. I can't see why anybody in the world would tolerate that. The fact that there's an entire generation of kids that think that's normal. Peter says games are getting bigger and bigger from 14 gig, which I liked a lot in the past, to over 100 gig, and that's pretty bizarre. So yeah, but there's got to be a better way to get that data across. Maybe we can play it online, let it load on their servers. That's got to cost the gaming companies like Steam. Can you imagine what their bandwidth bill's got to be? Holy cow. And what happens when you get a new computer? How do you move all those games over? You're going to be a while because Steam doesn't want you copying them. Steam wants you to download them again. And Steam's paying for all that unnecessary duplication of bandwidth. Nick Poverman said, this is why I love playing my retro games using the Dolphin emulator for the GameCube. It's easy and fast. There is a game coming out I'm quite interested in, quite honestly, called Starfield. That looks very promising. I'm very, very interested in that. And I might go ahead and get it for the Xbox. I'm not putting it on a PC. But the last game I played on the Xbox that I really enjoyed was Gears of War. And prior to that, Halo. So that'll date me. Let me scroll through the chat and see, as I mentioned, if you have any questions about this machine right here, I'll do my best to provide an answer. If I don't know, maybe somebody in the chat room knows. John White wants to know, would you purchase 2 or 3 of these systems to use in a small office? If so, what monitor would you pair? So basically, I would purchase as many of these as the office would need. It saves a lot of real estate. It saves a lot of room either on the desk or on the floor where they put many companies that I work for put the towers on the floor. And they get banged up, the chairs bang into them and stuff and whatever. The monitor is really an individual decision. It's like saying, that's a really nice stereo. What music would sound good on it? Like, what music would you play? Asking me what monitor I would buy is sort of like asking me what menu item I would order at the restaurant or what haircut I would get if I were you. These are questions that only you can answer. Your eyes will tell you if a screen is too big or too small. And then, of course, the price along with the size of the screen and the warranty, combined with how the screen looks, will be how you're going to make that decision. There's no one right answer. There's probably 10,000 different monitors you could buy to plug in that are going to be just fine, but just fine to somebody, maybe not to you. But any monitor, as long as it's got an HDMI input, which most do, including televisions, plug it into a projector. Make the screen 100 to 200 inches wide. As long as it's got an HDMI cable, you're good to go. If you want to use the 4 monitors, then you would need either a monitor that runs off USB or a DisplayPort monitor that you could have a cable that goes DisplayPort to USB-C. And then that's how, if you wanted to maximize. I would use the HDMI ports before I'd use USB for monitors. So my first 2 monitors will be powered through HDMI. And then if I wanted to add a third or a fourth, then I would go to the USB after that. That's what I would do. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. That's how I would do it. Suko Lawrence says, I love the NPB7. That's a good machine. It is. It's a higher end machine than this one. Trevor says, morning from Ballina in New South Wales, Australia. Welcome in, Trevor. Good day. Look at how clever I am. I can speak your language. I'll throw another shrimp on the Barbie for you. Just thinking of the lyrics to a Men at Work song, or Olivia Newton-John, or Little River Band, or AC/DC, or Midnight Oil. Don't get me started. The Bee Gees. Tame Impala. I'm sorry if you asked a question and I haven't answered it, it's because I haven't seen it. Please repost your question in the chat room as I'm trying to stay focused. Douglas says, Carrie, Starfield is a huge game. Yeah, no, I know. I'm well aware of it. Dennis Paulson said he's using the M6 Mini to watch today's stream. Right on. That thing is super tiny, isn't it? Starshine says, Bee Gees versus Predator should be a game. I'd buy it twice. That'd be a real short game, I think. Give you a whole new meaning to the lyrics of Staying Alive. What is the fastest drive that can go in here? Maybe a Samsung 980 Pro. Probably the fastest is the SK Hynix P44. Although the Western Digital 850, what's it called? N850X, or I can't remember the model number. Western Digital Black Gen 4 drive, SN850X, I think is what it's called. The SK Hynix P44. But you could also, the Team Group makes a pretty high performing drive for less money. It just kind of depends on if 100 megabytes one way or the other really is going to make a difference in reality, right? So if one drive's going to do 7,300 and one drive's going to do 7,000 on sequential read speeds, are you really ever going to notice that outside of benchmarks? Probably not. My favorite go-to drive right now is that Fangjing drive, which I'll show you here. Bring it up over here on Amazon. This would be the drive I would absolutely consider if I can get the screen to show up. There it is. The Fangjing S880 is a 2 terabyte Gen 4 NVMe drive that sells for about $82. So, Carrie, you're looking right at it. It says $89.99. Yeah, I'm also looking right here. So 10% of $89.99 is $8.99. So you subtract that from $89.99, you're right around $82 for a 2 terabyte drive here. But Kerry, that's a manufacturer I've never heard of. You called it Beijing, but it's clearly Ranxiana. No. That is an F and that is a G. Beijing. And they use the same controller and the same NAND chips as the big name manufacturers. That is SLC, up to 7,300 megabytes per second. But you might have heat related problems with that. So if you wanted a fast drive with a heatsink, you'd want to look for a drive that's used and promoted for PlayStation 5. So if we looked at NVMe 2 terabyte PS5, you'll see all the PS5 drives have heatsinks on them. So there is a Beijing S770, but it's going to be slow. Well, I take it back. It also reads up to 7,300 megabytes per second. It's also got a 10% off coupon code. So instead of $82, it'll be $85. And it comes with a heatsink. That'd probably do it. But if you wanted to stick with a name brand, the Samsung 980 Pro, which has a heatsink, would probably be a good choice there. Or the Western Digital Black SN850X if you want to spend a couple dollars more. And of course, if you're more of a Corsair fan, a little bit cheaper, still way more money than that Beijing. They have a different Western Digital Black that only goes up to 7,000. That's not even as fast as the Beijing, and you could buy 2 of those Beijings of the same capacity for the price of this one Western Digital Black. You could go with a manufacturer that I've never heard of before, claims that goes up to 7,000. Seagate Firecuda 530 is a fast drive, but they are pricey. They're one of the most expensive drives, but they perform very, very well besides both the Samsung 980 Pro and the Seagate Firecuda. Their 4K data transfers are pretty darn fast as well. If you don't mind going a little slower, like 4,800 megabytes per second, the S660 from Beijing also has a heatsink, and 10% off, it's going to put that down around $72. I think it's worth spending the extra $10 to go faster. Kingston, I can't say I'm a big fan of. Levin, if you want capacity and you don't care about performance, Levin is the way to go. Now, Levin here is claiming that this 2 terabyte Gen 4 can hit 7,200 megabytes per second. If that's the case, then maybe Levin has changed their ways, because the slowest solid state drives I have, the slowest I've ever seen, are made by one company. It's this one. So for this company to come out with a drive that's 2 terabytes and 7,200 maximum read speed for $80 with a heatsink, that's a crazy good deal. It might be worth checking out. Also pay attention to the warranty. A lot of these do have a 5-year warranty. Some have a 3-year, depending on the manufacturer, and sometimes depending on the model. This says it's a 3-year warranty. So if you care about your warranty for peace of mind, it may be worth paying a few extra dollars for. So yeah, here you go. Paul O'Brien says, Kerry, I bought 2 of the Beijing drives for my new PC build, and I'm doing it after Prime Day purchase. Right on. I've been very happy with the Beijing drives so far. Someone was concerned, how much will they slow down when they're beyond 50% full? A lot of SSDs slow down when they're more than 50% full. I had that problem with my Sabrent drive. But I'm not going to run through that test. We'll just see how they work naturally in the real world. And in time, and only through time, can I tell you that they're a good deal or not with regards to how reliable are they. Do they slow down when they get full? I don't know. It's going to take a while to figure that out. It's like wanting to know if I'm going to have a scar. You have to wait for it to heal. We can't predict whether or not there'll be a scar until after it heals, and you can't make it heal any faster. So I'll keep you updated and informed. But I've been very, very happy after researching who makes the controller, who makes the NAND chips. Yeah, they're the same as what the big name brands are using. So why am I paying for the big name brand price? And what if it's you? What if you're the little guy? How do you compete against the big brand if you're selling the exact same thing and all you're doing is changing the name and maybe the warranty, maybe you're matching the warranty? Why should people buy yours if they can get a name brand for the same price? So if you're the little guy, it makes sense that you have to be far more aggressive with your pricing, and you can afford to be because you're a little guy, you don't have all the major expenses that a large corporation has. There's a lot of bloat, including marketing and employees that do nothing all day that get paid regardless of how much work they actually do. Smaller company, that's less likely going to be the case, so they can afford to sell you essentially the same thing for less money. Is that what's happening here? It's what it appears to be, but I could be wrong. Thomas wants to know the brand of the RAM and solid state drive. We did show that earlier, Thomas. The RAM is made by ADATA. We did show the RAM close up. If you rewind the live video where I hold the unit up to the camera, you can see the RAM. And the SSD, I don't know who makes that. We can take a quick look here and see if we go back over to the HDMI input. And one quick way to tell is to just go to the properties of the C drive. Right click on the C drive, go to properties, then go to the hardware tab. You should see the manufacturer. Kingston makes it. There you go. Michael Lovell has renewed his support. He's now been a member for 11 months. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for being part of the Tech Club. Back over here on camera one. There I am. Starshine wants to know, Carrie, do you have any recommendations for 2 external drives for a photo project? Don't need a fast one. Hoping for a Prime Day deal. Well, I don't know what's happening on Prime Day in that regard, and I don't know what sort of capacity or speed you're looking for. But I can tell you that the Marcus Picks, which is a YouTube channel that I enjoy watching on photography, he really likes these SanDisks, and he moves a lot of data. When he's taking pictures, he's taking hundreds or 1,000 pictures at a time, and he needs to move them quickly. And he did a whole video on trying a bunch of different external drives. So if you're interested in photography-related hardware, check out Marcus Picks on YouTube. And it's all one word. Marcus is M-A-R-C-U-S, and Pix is P-I-X. Excellent YouTube channel. Highly recommended. Dan Nilsson says he doesn't like SK Hynix. He's not going to use them. He's had problems. So that's often a human condition. If you get burned, if you have a bad experience with a particular manufacturer, you may swear them off, despite the fact that you make up a minority of people that own SK Hynix products. There is some concern about how SK Hynix is handling the warranties. SK Hynix recently purchased Intel's solid-state division, so Intel no longer makes solid-state drives. Any Intel solid-state drives you're seeing available for sale are what's left over. SK Hynix has taken over that, and so their North American support should become better in that regard, because if there ever was a complaint with SK Hynix, it was that, as far as I know, any return or warranty was done through Amazon. Even after 30 days, Amazon and SK Hynix had some kind of deal worked out. One of the reasons you don't see me using SK Hynix is because they don't really have a good software toolbox like Samsung does. That Samsung Magician software is what makes the Samsung drive worth paying a little extra for. So primarily I'm using Samsung drives, but I was also using the Intel drives for budget drives. But if you're talking high performance, to the best of my knowledge, on the Gen 4 side of things, SK Hynix P44 is faster than everybody else. But if you don't like SK Hynix, despite the fact that they just If you like Intel SSDs, but you don't like SK Hynix SSDs, it's now the same company. So I want you to just be aware of that. Shane Perkins posts a link to an article I posted on my Twitter a week ago. If you guys aren't following me on Twitter, you could have learned all of this days ago when I posted it. So you can follow me, the Kerry Holzman, at Twitter. And I post a lot of news articles like that there to get them probably more timely. Dan Nilsson said he prefers Samsung. Yeah, I prefer Samsung as well. You'll see I use a lot of Samsung drives. However, I am intrigued with Fanjing. I'm so intrigued. I'll give you an idea of how intrigued I am. I am this intrigued. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are empty boxes. These are the ones I've got in use. And then there's 3 or 4 more on the shelf for future projects. So I've got a lot invested in testing this brand. I normally won't go that far overboard unless they really hit it out of the park and I'm impressed. As you can imagine, if a year goes by and these things are dying or slowing down, I'm going to be angry times 10. You understand what I'm saying? I don't normally do this, but unfortunately, the way the market, right now we're in a downswing with RAM and solid state drive prices. So I want to take advantage of it because I know if I buy these now and we, end up with another pandemic or something, I don't want to have to pay outrageous prices for them. And I know I'm going to need them and they're not going to expire. You know what I mean? It's not like they're not like fruit that are perishable because they sat on a shelf too long. So we'll see. But I also don't want to go a year and these things are still perfectly fine. They have a 5-year warranty on them. And say, oh man, I wish I would have bought more of those. For whatever reason, they're not available because that happens too. Mark Gaines contributes £5. He says, I like that mini PC. I'm buying one for my son. Also, check your PayPal. Hey, right on. Let me do that now. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. Oh, it looks like I've missed a few things in email here. Peter Laycock with a extremely generous contribution. Hope you enjoy this Amazon gift card. Carry for anything you want. I sent you a few birthday cards. I hope you like them. Your friend Buster. Well, I haven't seen any. I haven't seen, if you're talking about the snail mail, I haven't seen any, but thank you. Well, I'm going to save that for Amazon Prime Day. $10 from David Coleman. He says, Uncle Carrie's channel from Captain Blinsky. Well, thank you, Captain Blinsky. $13 from Bikeman I7. Thank you so much, Bikeman. $10.40 from Nicholas Caffrey, who says it's his late fee, and $12.17 from Mark Gaines. Holy cow. Is it a payday? Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Amazon Prime Day, July 11th and 12th. If you're an Amazon Prime customer, they've artificially created a Black Friday in July to get people excited and to keep the money flowing, right? So Amazon doesn't necessarily set the prices unless it's on Amazon stuff like Amazon Kindle or Fire Tablet, Alexa, stuff like that. They ask manufacturers to participate voluntarily, and the manufacturers decide whether or not they're going to participate. And if so, they decide what the discount's going to be. So Minisforum, look, I think you'd be a foolish manufacturer if you weren't riding on the coattails of marketing dollars that Amazon puts into promoting Prime Day. You're missing an opportunity. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay for that marketing. Amazon, it's not like a franchise owner, like a Subway restaurant franchise owner has to pay the corporation a portion of what it costs them to do coupons and commercials. Whether the store owner likes that or not, that's part of the franchise deal. The manufacturers who sell on Amazon are not paying Amazon for the cost that Amazon is spending marketing Prime Day. All they have to do to participate in it is discount the price of their product. And obviously, the more aggressive they do that, the more sales they're going to see, the more brand awareness they're going to get, the better Amazon looks to people going, holy cow, look at these deals at Amazon. So Amazon kind of gets credit, even though it's the manufacturers that are voluntarily choosing whether or not to participate. And just, keep that in mind. So I was excited when I heard Minisforum was participating in Amazon Prime Day. So you can save some money on Minisforum products. I don't know if it's only certain products that are on sale or if they all have a discount that's the same. But Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll find out. So I will store those Amazon gift cards to see what happens on Tuesday and Wednesday. Used to be Amazon would sort of have products priced down all at the same time, so that the first day of Amazon Prime, all the good deals would be gone by the second day. So now Amazon's changing how they're releasing specials so that there's a reason to come back later in the day or early in the morning. Obviously, early in the morning when people are waking up, and that's the time you want to grab their attention and have your good deals. If you're like me and you're a night owl, all things are sold out. By the time I'm already out of bed, it's gone. So in order to give people like me and people for shopping on day two a reason to come back, they are rationing out the deals more evenly across the 2 days. But I'm glad to hear that. Dan Nilsson says he's trying a Kioxia 1 terabyte. So far, so good. I've never heard of Kioxia. That's a new one for me. Jeremy the Red says, Carrie, I'll pay my late fee next week when I get my check. So you're going to be late on your late fee? It's all good, man. I appreciate you guys. Jim KJ3N says, I desperately need to replace this 5th gen Intel laptop. We'll be watching Amazon and Newegg. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. So like Walmart and Target are also lowering the store prices on Tuesday and Wednesday to compete with Amazon. And then Newegg and B&H Photo and other online shops that consider themselves competitors will also lower their prices on Tuesday and Wednesday. That's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned it, because there are other sellers who are competing with Amazon for your attention. So they're like, well, if Amazon's going to lower their prices on Tuesday and Wednesday, so will we. So you could potentially walk into a Target store and buy things in store at Target or Walmart on Tuesday or Wednesday. And you'll know why those prices are suddenly discounted like out of the blue. It's because they're competing with Amazon Prime Day. You have Amazon Prime, don't you, Camera Girl? Are you looking forward to Amazon Prime Day?
Not really.
No, nothing you want? You got everything you want?
I mean, there might be something that pops up, but from what I saw so far, I could take her to me.
So there's some websites that'll give you some idea of things on sale, but we really don't know everything that's going to be on sale until the actual day. Amazon's playing their cards close to their vest because they don't want their competitors beating them to the punch. Kioxia is Toshiba. Interesting. Alhej Tepej provides a link from Mini PC Union. I haven't been to Mini PC Union in a few weeks. It's a great website forum for the discussion of all things Mini PC. Let me take a look at what he has posted here. Alhaj says, what Intel, oh, is a link from Tom's Hardware that Intel's planning to bring Wi-Fi 7 to client platforms by 2024. That's still a long way away. Ace Magician Prime Day deals. Oh, that's what you posted. Okay, so that link. All right. Well, when we do an Ace Magician video, but I'm more interested in the Minisforum deals, quite honestly, because that's what we're talking about now, the Minisforum. And I suspect that this Minisforum is probably more powerful than, like the Ace Magician stuff tends to be more the budget orientation and maybe some of the middle, whereas Minisforum kind of covers the gamut of both entry level, mid range, and enthusiast. So they're across the board where you can get a very inexpensive, $200 computer all the way up to a $1,500 or $1,600, like Nook i7X fully equipped. But yeah, again, so it kind of depends on what you're in the market for. Andy Kane contributes €2. He says, every little bit helps. Happy Friday. Thank you, Andy. Cheers, my friend. I see Michael Shaw joining us in the chat. Hey, Michael, good to see you, my friend. There's John Williams, Chris McGraw. Some guy over 40 is somebody's name here. Welcome in. Nick Poverman says Kioxia drives are used in Dell laptops. We have 30 Dell Latitude 5530s. They all have Kioxia NVMe drives. Interesting. Never heard of them. Looking for any questions I might have missed. Once again, I'll remind you, if I have not addressed your question, it's because I haven't seen it. You'll need to post it again. The chat room moves pretty quickly on these live Friday videos. And so then the time it takes me to answer one question, if you would ask in that time, it could be 10, 15 minutes before I get back. And by then it will have scrolled off the top of the chat cache. Then that's why I'll need you to post it again. I'm not intentionally ignoring anybody. George Schleicha contributes $10 in super chat. Thank you, Jorge. George. Jerry McFarland says, thanks, Kerry, for the great stream and for the heads up about the Prime Day deal. Right on. So, any questions about this mini PC I can answer for you guys? I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm very curious how this 13500 compares to the desktop 13500, because the desktop 13500 that I put together to test the Gen 5 SSDs, well, that thing rips through my videos on Cyberlink Power Director using the integrated graphics. It's the fastest video rendering machine I have. Plays games? Well, I wouldn't know. However, I'm curious because the 13500 laptop edition chip, which is what this is in, those generally aren't as powerful as the equivalent desktop. But I'm curious if I throw Cyberlink Power Director on this and I load one of my project files and render it under the same settings, and then compare how much time it's going to take to complete the render. I mean, this is a fraction of the size of the desktop we built with the 13500, and this is a 13500. So I'm going, But I also think I'm going to need probably an i7 laptop size, laptop design CPU to be the equivalent of the desktop i5. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm just kind of curious how all that's going to play out in reality for, doing something other than benchmarks, but actually using the computer for something that matters. Victor Calendar contributes £2. Thank you, Victor. And Al has just posted a link from CPUuserbenchmark.com comparing the 13500H to the 13500. But those benchmarks don't really mean a lot to me, because what matters to me is how are my projects with my settings going to render out in time? How much time will it take? That's the only thing I care about. And it's entirely possible that the benchmarks you're looking at show one chip is better than the other by far. And yet in reality, there may be no difference between them for how I need to use it. However, there could be a world of difference. But that's the only thing that I care about, is if I'm going to use this 13500, the reason when I was asked about specifically this unit with a 13500 in it, 13500H, was I thought, I have a subscription, Cyberlink Power Director, and that means I can install it on any number of machines, but I can only activate the license on one machine at a time. Another benefit of subscription versus perpetual license. And I can take the same video project file, put it on here, run the render with the same bit rate at 4K, and it's a 2-3 hour video at 4K, and see what the render time is on this compared to the desktop. Then I'll be able to tell you definitively, at least in the case of doing actual work instead of pretending to work, which one's better than the other, and if so, by how much. But that may not be of any interest to you if you're not using it for that purpose. So around the wheel goes. But for benchmarking, benchmarking is pretending to use a computer. So that information is only just so helpful within limitation. Jason Wyrick says, Kerry, I've got a Dell Latitude 5590 8th gen that at Edge and Chrome will not load any web pages, but I was able to download Firefox and use that, and it works. Have you ever seen that? Well, it sounds like you're going to need a fresh installation of your operating system. You didn't mention if it was Windows 10 or 11. You also didn't mention when the problem started. George Frugia wants to know where you check for BIOS upgrade on Minisforum machines. I don't think I've ever had to upgrade a BIOS on a Minisforum machine. So let's take a look. It's a fair question. Minisforum's website is here. Go to the video capture. And somewhere should be support link. Just contact. Scroll over here for a second. Specifications. Frequently asked questions. Official support page. It's right here. And these are the downloads for the NAB5, NAB6, and NPB7. So the NPB5 has been added here yet. And I imagine if there was a BIOS update, this would be where it would be located. Yeah. If you needed a BIOS update for any reason, well, I mean, I don't know how you would determine that you needed a BIOS update. That's generally something they tell you, not something you tell them. But if you were having a problem that you think a BIOS update will fix, better yet, if you're having a problem at all, I would contact Minisforum support and let them tell you what the fix is. It's like going to a doctor and telling the doctor what you need for medicine. The doctor needs to make that determination, not the patient. So if there is a BIOS update, I imagine it would be located there. But why? Why would you need the BIOS update? That's what I'd want. Chris McGraw said, if that's a laptop CPU, they're generally about 10 to 20% slower compared to a desktop equivalent. Yeah, it sounds about right. Lawn Dog said he's got the Western Digital and Samsung software packages with the Western Digital 850X NVMe and the Samsung 980 Pro NVMe, and he likes and appreciates both software packages. Yeah, I just prefer Samsung's package better. I just think it's better, but to each their own. My friend Ron joins us in the chat. Hey, Ron, good to see you, my friend. David Dix at Rock City PC wants to know if I've tried the Feijing Gen 5 drive. I wasn't aware that one existed. Sabrin's got a Gen 5 drive coming out where they're already hitting over 14,000 megabytes per second. Let me take a quick look over here for Feijing. Gen 5. As far as I can tell, that doesn't exist. If you have a link that you can post, I'd like to see it, because I'm not finding it available on Amazon. Or at least tell me the model number. Maybe I can find it that way. Sarge Tech said SanDisk also has an SSD dashboard. Well, SanDisk and Western Digital are the same company now, so. Does anybody know why a gaming mouse, a Logitech G502X, would go haywire at times while using it? What does haywire mean? Is it wired or wireless? Is it started doing this behavior, or is it, in other words, was it working and then it suddenly stopped working, or has it never worked right? Is it always just gone haywire? What does haywire mean? Is it a wired or wireless mouse? And if it's wireless, have you changed the batteries? If it's wired, have you changed the USB port? And have you downloaded the Logitech mouse software? Lou Greenia says the Ace Magician CK10 that I have edits my raw videos from my drone with ease, and I was impressed with how well it does it. They're incredibly powerful little mini PCs, all of them. So depending on what your expectations are, what your needs are, will ultimately determine your happiness with it. Jason Wyrick said, fresh install of Windows 10, then upgraded to 11. Clean install, even tried incognito, same thing. So if you've got a computer and you've done a completely clean install of your operating system, and that clean install, without installing anything else, your browser's not working, in my experience, the end user isn't giving me all the information. You're putting a browser add-on, you're downloading some third-party piece of software. So my homework for you would be wipe the drive, whether you're installing Windows 10 or 11, pick one, install it clean. Don't do an upgrade. Do it exactly the way I show it. As soon as it's done upgrading, leave it unplugged, create a local user account, then plug it into the network, and then open up Microsoft Edge and see if it works without installing or changing anything. And then, of course, the other thing that you can do is unplug your modem, unplug your router. If you have any switches, unplug anything on your network. So network switches people forget about because they might be in a different room. The network router and the network modem. I should have a modem and router built in one. Leave them unplugged for 2 full minutes and plug them back in again. Wait another 2 minutes and see if that fixes it. Ah, there's the link from Elhez on that Fangjing drive. I want to see what that looks like. Beijing S900. Okay. Share the screen with everybody so we can see this together. Beijing S900, 2 terabyte. Oh, it only goes up to 10,000 megabytes per second. I'm not impressed. I want to see something faster. With Gen 5, we should be able to hit 15,000 or pretty darn close to it. And because the Gen 5 drives are still brand new, just like when the Gen 4 drives first came out, they weren't hitting 7,300. It took about a year before they caught up with what the technology can do. So 10% off, it's going to make it about 270. I think that's about what I paid for the Gen 5 drive I've got now that runs at exactly the same speed. It's likely because they're using the exact same parts. So yeah, I'm not impressed. Let me try this. Let's go here. Turn camera 1 on a second. Let me see if I can find something to show you guys here. I'll show you this article from, from Tom's Hardware. So Sabre's working on a Gen 5 drive right now that'll hit 14,000. Could be the world's fastest. It's not out yet, it's a prototype. And this article explains where they are in the process. And they're calling it the Rocket X5. And there's a sample of the benchmarks. That I'm excited about. So we'll see who gets the product to market first. Who gets the product to market first. Eichmann says the cursor goes all over the screen. Are you using a mouse pad? Yes, he's using a mouse pad. Try a different mouse pad or turn the mouse pad upside down. If the mouse is mechanical, if it's not a laser mouse, if it's not optical, but it actually has a ball, then what ends up happening is it picks up debris and dust and hairs off your desk and it gets into the rollers. And you have to open it up and you have to blow it all out and clean it. This is a newest Logitech 502X, G502X. What does that look like? Logitech G502X. Well, that's an expensive mouse. Wireless gaming mouse. So what I would do is I would download the Logitech software. I would make sure you got good batteries in there. And I would switch the USB port that you're plugging the receiver in. Because if the receiver is too far away, so if you're plugging into the back of the computer, you need that receiver to be closer to the mouse. It sounds like they might be too far apart. Or just take the wireless mouse and get it really close to the receiver and roll it on your hand and see if it's working better. That'll tell you if you're having a range issue. Could also be that the channel it's broadcasting on is you've got something else broadcasting on the same channel. And if that's the case, I don't know what to tell you. I'll start from moving the computer to a physical other location or find the source of the competing channel that's interfering with the performance of that mouse and turn that off or move that. But it may be the physical location is the problem. And yeah, low batteries, unless it's rechargeable. But if you put batteries in it, maybe a fresh set of batteries. And make sure the batteries are in the correct orientation. As Old Man 55 says, don't do like me and put a battery in backwards. Sometimes, as long as one battery's in right, it's enough power to get it on. So it is possible for some devices to still work, but they're not working as well. Sometimes they have rechargeable batteries. So if that's the case, that obviously doesn't apply. Mr. B508 says, hello, everyone. Better late than never. Happy Friday. Welcome in there, Mr. B. All right, we're just a little over 2 hours for today's broadcast. I'm not seeing other questions coming up about the mini PC. He says it's a wired version of the G502X. So if it's wired, then we don't have to worry about batteries or interference. I would use a different USB port. Don't use the one next to it. You've got to go away from that USB port to a different pair, because there are always pairs. So go to a different pair, go to the front of the computer. If you're in the back, if you're in the front, then go to the back, try that out. And if it's a new mouse, send it back. You shouldn't have to go through all this with a wired mouse. If it's not working as advertised, return it. And then, maybe you got a bad one, send it back to the manufacturer. You shouldn't have to fix anything brand new. Old Man 55 said the specs on that mini NPB5 are great. Again, as a sort of a one-size-fits-all solution apart from gaming, this would be a computer I would recommend, unless somebody's got kids that are likely going to get into this and damage it. Right? You got young kids who might put cereal in there or something, want to get in there and break some stuff. In that case, I wouldn't advise it, because it's too easy to get into. That's likely going to lead to problems. So I'll leave that up to you. You know your household and what the risks are. If you do have small children that are likely going to damage this, get one that doesn't open so easily. Andy wants to know, is it suitable to be a home theater PC? It's overkill. It's way overkill for a home theater PC. So yes, it could do that while it was practically asleep. Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. It's quiet. It's extremely powerful. I think as a home theater PC, you wouldn't need to spend that much money. You could spend half as much on a lower end model that would be a home theater PC just as good. And lots of suggestions coming in on that whole mouse concern there. Love to see the community helping the community. That's the way we do it. I want to thank the folks at Minisforum for sending this unit. They have a few more, I'm told, that are be coming this way when they're ready, when they're released. And hopefully we can also be the first to jump on those. And, if you do a search on YouTube right now for the NPB5, should be the only thing that comes up, other than these content creators that are looking at pictures and commenting. But I think I'm the only one who's actually got it, not just commenting on pictures about a product announcement. There's a big difference between commenting on a product announcement and actually having the product. So overall, this is a big thumbs up for me. I like it for all the reasons that I've previously mentioned. Easy to get into. It's quiet. It's dual channel. It's DDR5. It's Wi-Fi 6E. The storage, a little bit weak, but again, you can change that yourself. At 512, it's plenty for most people. As a computer technician, most people, I can tell you, after 30 plus years of doing this, have less than 100 gigs of data on their computers, regardless if they've had the computer 10 years. The average computer owner uses well under 100 gigs of data. Customers buy these pre-builts that have D drives. The D drives, I've never seen a D drive in use in the pre-builts. The people that build their own and put their own D drive in, they use it. But the people who buy a computer that comes with a D drive, they don't know what it is, they don't know what it's for, and it just stays empty. It's weird. So I think, in most office situations and in most homes, this is a great computer. And I was going to say high end, but I mean, compared to what most homes are using, this is going to be high end for them. And, when you look at the price, if you try and build the equivalent of this in a desktop, you've got to buy the motherboard, the processor, potentially the cooling fan, or I guess you could get a 13500 comes with a heatsink and fan from Intel. You'd still have to get a power supply. You still have to get the RAM, the storage, and pay for an operating system, which, by the way, you could save a lot of money using VIP CDK deals. I'm proud to have them as a sponsor here. And basically, you can get the same Windows 11 Pro license that Microsoft wants to charge you $199.99 for. You can get for like $25. Further, you could pick up a Windows 10 professional key for $15.90 and use that Windows 10 product key to activate Windows 11 Pro, whose product key costs more. Explain that to me. All the links are in the video description below this video. Use the coupon code CARRY and you save 30% off the $22. It brings it down to $15.90 for Windows 10 Pro. There's also Office 2016, 2019, and 2021 available. Again, the CARRY discount code will give you 30% off, 20%, I think it's 30% off. I use these product codes myself. I use them in my business. It saves my customers money. It's all on the up and up. And they've got the product keys are guaranteed to work. So there you go. Also, RoboForm, my thanks out to RoboForm for being a sponsor here. It's a password manager. If you're not using one, well, you're living life a lot harder than it could be. RoboForm is, I don't know how I would live without it. So it's basically, if I want to go to eBay, I go to RoboForm, click on eBay. It's sort of like a bookmark. But not only does it take me to eBay, it puts in my user ID, it puts in my password, and it submits it. One click, just like a bookmark. And I can have very unique passwords that RoboForm generates of any length, practically, of nonsense that I would never remember. And that way, no two sites share passwords. So if a site gets hacked, I don't have to worry about somebody using my login credentials somewhere else, because every site I log into has different login credentials, because RoboForm makes it so easy. The only login credentials I need to remember are the ones that are required to log into RoboForm. So you always want to make sure you use that. Pick a good, strong password that you're going to remember, and let RoboForm do the rest of the work. 30% off RoboForm for all the viewers. No coupon code is necessary. Just use the link in the video description. It's a proprietary link just for us, so they know you're a Kerry Holzman viewer. And if you're brand new to RoboForm, 30% off all new subscriptions. All the products I talk about with all the sponsors all have trials, and they're all guaranteed if it's instant house call for remote support. RoboForm, Cronus, VIP CDK deals. We don't have very many sponsors here. There's a reason for that. They have to pass my test, which is they've got to be a value. They've got to provide a service to you guys at a great price, and they've got to stand behind their product. So every one of these companies, there's free trials. There's, in many cases, there's a guarantee that, well, first of all, like with RoboForm and Acronis, it's a free downloadable trial, an instant house call too. And so that way you get a fully functioning product and you decide, you know, do I want to keep this? If so, you need to pay for it. So you know exactly what you're going to get. And with regards to the product keys, those product keys are guaranteed to work. You need to use them within 30 days, just like any other return. Usually you get about 30 days to return things to Amazon. After that, it's not returnable to Amazon anymore. Much the same way, the product keys work the same way. If you have a problem with it, you let them know within 30 days. They're going to fix it for you. If you wait beyond 30 days, I can't tell you what they're going to do. I don't know. It's kind of the behavior of a scam artist. That's what scammers do. So in many ways, the customer is afraid of being ripped off by the seller, but nowadays the seller has to be worried about being ripped off by the consumer. So we have to find this trust level here, and it's got to be, you know, reasonable and limited. You can't just say this is forever. So don't hoard up the keys for one day you might need them, only to find out the key got stolen or somebody just brute force hacked it and got lucky. And now your key doesn't work, and now you think it's the fault of the seller. You waited too long. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So I don't hoard the keys. When I need the key, I buy it, and I activate it within minutes after I buy it. So if I have any problems, I go to the support chat and I say, hey, you know, this key doesn't work. And they might ask me a few questions. I answer it. They'll provide me a different key, or they'll tell me that I'm doing something wrong. They fix it. But after 30 days, come on. And that's true with just about anything you'll buy in life, at least here in the States. Average of 30-day return. There are some retailers like Costco and other places that will extend returns, but you're paying extra for that price, or you're paying extra, like for the membership and such, for that benefit. So just encouraging people to have reasonable expectations. Steve Miller says, I've been using Bitwarden Password Manager, but I'm thinking of switching to RoboForm. But you can at least try it. It doesn't cost you anything to try it. And Sarge Tech has posted the link, our link to RoboForm, where no coupon code is necessary. I'm just looking if there are any other questions. Can I reuse the heatsink and fan that's on this for another chip? Well, I already talked about that, Sue. Maybe, if the NVMe drive you're using is the same thickness. That heatsink, the good news is heatsinks are very inexpensive for M.2 drives. They're usually under $10. But if it's a single-sided, which is what this appears to be, a single-sided chip where there's a circuit board, there's no chips on the underside of it. So it's a thinner drive. If the drive has chips on both sides, like a larger capacity chip might have, it's most likely going to have chips on both sides, then the drive is thicker, and then the heatsink won't sit down all the way for the screws to go in on this particular heatsink here. But if you rewind the video, we talked all about that earlier. Douglas Burchell says, what's a D drive used for? See, you just made my point, Douglas. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's most people, when they hit save, it just goes wherever the default setting is. They don't know how to navigate folders. So yeah, so a D drive would be of no use to them. If you've got to ask that question, you're not using it. Which one do I like more? Jeff H wants to know. The B-Link GTR7 Pro 7940 or the one you showed us today? Well, the GTR7 Pro is a gaming PC. It's really intended for gamers. It's also more money, significantly more money. It's also physically larger. I don't think it's fair to compare these two machines. They're completely different categories and different prices at different levels for different purposes. If I was playing games, I'd want the GTR7. If I wanted a good value for a good computer to do anything but play games, or if the gaming I was doing was very mild, then this would be my preference. It's like asking me, do you prefer the pickup truck or do you prefer a four-door sedan? Well, that depends. Are we trying to move 4 people inside of a vehicle on a regular basis in a 2-door pickup truck? If so, I prefer the sedan. On the other hand, am I moving and hauling a lot of equipment, large, long equipment that wouldn't fit in the back of the trunk or in a hatchback? Then I'd prefer the truck. So depending on how it's being used, how much it costs, that would be my answer would vary based on those needs. They're both very good machines, but completely different. Jeff H says, thank you for your honesty. Well, thank you for asking your question. Viper 30 said, I've been using RoboForm for years, thanks to Uncle Kerry. Yeah, once you start using it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. I've been using it. If it's not 20 years yet, right now we're getting close. The Greenia says 2 programs that are a must on my systems are RoboForm and Acronis. Amen, brother. I agree. Bikeman said the last time he tried Acronis, he had issues accessing internal network shares. But maybe the second time I try future, as soon as I can afford it, it'll work better. So that's a problem with education. That's not a problem with the product. You're not having a tech support problem. You're having a tutoring problem. You need to be taught. I use Acronis over shares since the early 2000s. It's never an issue. So if that's the case, there's a great Acronis support forum over at Reddit that you can use for free, or you can come in here in the chat room, and we have plenty of folks here in the chat who have a vast knowledge and experience in peer-to-peer networking. This stuff is incredibly simple, but if you're still sort of new or not entirely familiar with the ins and outs of SMB and stuff like this and Samba, then it may be time for you to learn that if it's interfering with your ability to get something done, and then saying it's because of the product. It's not the product. Frankie B said he uses RoboForm and loves it. I've never met anybody that used RoboForm and didn't like it. But again, if you're having problems with the product, the best place you can go for help is to the manufacturer's support. The second best place you can go is here in our community. And then the third best place would be search the product with the word Reddit in your Google search. And there's probably a dedicated forum of enthusiasts of that particular product. If it's a game, an application, that know it inside and out, and sometimes even company representatives monitor those forums on Reddit. Acronis sure does, I'll tell you that. They have a gentleman named Bagowden, and that's his job. Bagowden is to answer community questions in the community forums. And Reddit is one of those community forums. Sometimes just thumbing through those, you'll read what questions and solutions have been asked and provided that might give you ideas that you hadn't even thought to ask yet. John Williams said he's been using VIP CDK deals for dozens of keys, and I've never had a problem. Thanks, Kerry Holzman. That's what I want to hear. I'm buying keys all the time. Every time you see me with one of these bare bones minis or the Intel Nooks or whatever it is, I have to provide my own OS. You know where I'm getting it? I'm getting it from VIP CDK deals. I'm not asking for the keys. I'm paying for them the same way you are, and I'm paying the same price you are paying because I want to show them support in the same way they're showing me support. So I don't want to say to them, hey, give me some free keys. And now I'm sort of not having the same experience my viewers are having. I very much want to have my reviews be as accurate as possible. If I have to contact support, I don't tell them who I am. They probably wouldn't care anyway. I just want to call or contact support, whether it's email or a phone call or a chat and do it just like everybody else does it and see what kind of service I get. And then I can report back honestly what you should expect if you repeat or need to do what I've just done. Starshine said, I thought of a type of prize you could have for viewers, hang out live with Carrie on set. Yeah, I don't need that liability. You know, all I need is for somebody to slip and fall, twist an ankle, or crack their head against the tile floor, and I won't have a studio anymore. Nick Poverman says, are there any places that are a must-see in Sedona, Arizona? Well, if you're in Sedona, you're going to be close to Jerome. And Jerome is this sort of mountaintop old copper mining community that's all now artists and sort of hippies. They've got a haunted mansion there. It's probably an hour's drive, if that, maybe 45 minutes from Sedona. In Sedona itself, the whole place is to be seen, really. There's a neat little artist shopping mall called Talaki Paki. But it's a shopping area with sculptures and paintings and all kinds of stuff. It's really very elite. And then there's some pretty nice restaurants there as well. And there's a little resort that's hidden. It's down off the main drag. If you walk past where all the shops are, go behind the shops and look down, there's a resort down there, and they've got an elevator on the hill that takes you down to it. You don't have to be staying there to use that and go walk the grounds. It's pretty neat. And Ron mentions Oak Creek Canyon. Yeah, but that might be busy in the summer. Viper 30 says, same here, never had an issue with VIP CDK deals. The reason I emphasize this so much is there are a lot of shady sellers out there. If you're buying product keys off eBay, it's a violation of eBay policy, and you'll find as soon as you buy the product key, within minutes, that seller's account is shut down. Or Etsy. A lot of times you're getting stolen product keys, pirated keys. They say they're selling you a pro key, but you're actually getting an enterprise key, which nobody at home should have unless it's provided by your employer directly. And that means getting any support and the kind of problems you're going to run into. The networking settings are all different on enterprise. It's not the same thing. I've been there, I've done that. I've had the calls, clients who thought they were saving money and they had to pay me to fix the problem. So go with a reputable seller. And I can tell you VIP CDK Deals is a reputable seller. They've been around a long time. Microsoft is very well aware of their existence, and Microsoft has offices in the same country. I can assure you, if what they were doing was wrong, Microsoft would shut it down. So the very fact that it exists over this period of time should be enough reassurance. However, if you want to give Microsoft $200 for Windows 11 Pro, don't let me get in your way. It's fine by me. I don't want to give that kind of money to Microsoft. And you know Dell and HP aren't paying that. So how come it's okay for Dell and HP to get the cheaper licenses, but not you and I? So thank goodness for VIP CDK deals. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. George says this is another machine that goes to sleep after 3 hours. Well, you decide when it goes. The computer doesn't decide that. You decide that. That's all in your settings. You can usually type the word plan, P-L-A-N, in your search box there on Windows 11, and you'll see Edit Power Plan, and you can make the changes there if it's Windows 11. Old Man 55 says, this is a great video, but it's time for supper here in Arkansas, so bye for now. All right, yeah, I think we're going to get going as well. Thank you guys again for hanging out with me. Thank you for the super chats. Let me give a shout out again to everybody who's contributed during today's live stream. Let's start from the beginning. Paul O'Brien with his €2. And there's Sarge Tech and Rick Lakes. Our friend Buster, Planet Cryos, Douglas Burchell, the Vintage Tech Channel, Davis Parsons, Samuel Kowalski, Randy Robluski, Kenton Morton, Mike Visions, Ian Gooch, Craig Casabona, Sue Cool 98 Lawrence, Mark Gaines, Andy Kane, George Schleicha, and Victor Callender. And for the PayPal contributions and Amazon gift cards, a thank you to, a new one, David Everett with a $10 Amazon gift card, Dan Nilsson with a $10 PayPal contribution, Mark Gaines with a $12.17 PayPal contribution, Nicholas Caffrey with a $10.40 contribution, Patrick Taylor with a $13 Amazon gift card, David Coleman with a $10 PayPal contribution, $25 from our friend Luke Greenia. A shout out for the extreme generosity from Peter Laycock, Frankie B, and Rob Foster. You guys are over the top. Holy cow. I know what money I'm going to be using to buy product for all of the rest of this month. I can't wait for Prime Day now. I got some money burning a hole in my pocket to buy more stuff for more content on the show. Robert Jones says, Carrie, have you shopped on Temu? No. Temu is a massive ripoff. Wish.com and Temu are places I strongly encourage you guys to stay far away from. Don't let greed get the better of you, because I can promise if you shop there, you're going to regret it. Douglas Burchell with another $2 super chat. He says, will there be a show tomorrow? I don't know yet. I have an appointment tomorrow with a client after the sun sets. And then Sunday I have an appointment. And Monday we do the live show for members only. And then Tuesday and Wednesday will be Amazon Prime. Might make some Amazon Live content. I'm still on the fence because Amazon has upset me about that the last time I did it. But I'm thinking about it. But as for tomorrow, I do have a lot of content to catch up to. I've got a lot of stuff waiting, and I should do a show tomorrow, but I don't know if I'm going to be live tomorrow or not. It's not normal for me to broadcast on the weekends. But I've been so busy lately. I've been trying to catch up. And one of the things that's been keeping me away, whenever we do the giveaways, just so you know, I don't have an employee to pass that off to. Every giveaway machine has to be put on the bench, all hooked up, make sure it's updated, make sure it's all configured correctly, clear out any browser history or any downloads, remove any unwanted software or results of like Crystal Disk Mark and all that other stuff, so that it's ready to be taken out of the box. When the recipient gets it, they just plug it in and start using it. I make sure Windows is activated. I make sure there's 100 little details I have to check. Then I have to figure out how it goes all back in the box so it'll fit. And, I'm not a shipping facility. So I've been saving boxes about that size, and I go into the garage where all the empty boxes are, and I look for a box that should fit. Then I try and find some packing material. Sometimes the packing material makes it too big for the box I want to use, and I have to remove all the packing material because it doesn't really need it anyway. Then I have to tape it up. Then I have to get the person's address and phone number and print it onto a sheet of paper. Then I have to take that piece of paper and keep it with that box. And then I do that again and again and again. And then I take those boxes and sheets of paper, put them in the car. And then I drive those to the FedEx store. And then I wait in line. And the FedEx guy has to manually type everything that's on those pieces of paper, which is going to be the return address, my FedEx account number, who it's going to, what their phone number is. And then he makes a receipt for me. And I say, every one of these boxes needs its own receipt. You can't just give me one long receipt. When I get the receipts, after everything's been shipped, I come back here, I scan those receipts, and I label the saved files under the person's name. Then I have to create an email to that person to say, here's a copy of the receipt, and I create a link to FedEx with their individual tracking information so that they don't have to type it in manually. Okay, I started at 2 o'clock yesterday to ship out 3 more mini PCs, and I didn't get back until after 7 o'clock. So I started at 2 o'clock, getting them all prepped, getting them boxed, getting the addresses printed out. Then by the time I got out the door, it was a little before 6. FedEx closes at 7. And then had to wait my turn. I try to go as quickly as I can by having everything ready. So all the guy has to do is copy the information off the page. Then I have to verify what he copied is accurate, that he didn't transpose any numbers. And then I'm like, well, I'm out. I haven't eaten. I'll stop at McDonald's or Arby's or something, and grab a bite. And then I come home, and that's my whole day. So while I love doing the giveaways, there is a ton of work that goes into prepping them and getting them shipped out that I'm not quite sure you guys are fully appreciating. And a lot of times the reason why there's a break in the giveaways is because I don't have the time, or if I'm shipping 3 computers, these mini PCs on average cost a little over $30 on average to ship. Some of them are $40. It kind of depends on how far away it's going. So shipping 3 on average costs me $100. And we've had a lot of generosity from folks like Peter Laycock and John Jack Wilson to help cover the cost of the PCs and the shipping. But I'm still the guy that has to still do all the work and make sure all the money that's in the right account for FedEx to take that from. And whenever we do these giveaways, it results in me making less content that week because I can't afford to hire somebody and pay them so that they can be paid to pack and ship a computer I'm not getting paid for. It's going somewhere for free. So anyway, that's why there weren't as many videos this week. I also had appointments. I had a dentist appointment, a doctor's appointment, and so I had another doctor's appointment next week. So that, of course, I can't do that and do the show at the same time. If I'm out running an errand or doing an appointment or servicing a client, there's no videos being made. Just in case you're curious why they're seemingly so random. The schedule I stick to is Mondays at 1 o'clock Pacific time for members only. That's a thing. And Fridays at 1 o'clock Pacific time for everybody. That's a thing. Any videos I do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday are sort of bonuses. And lately there's been a lot of bonuses because I've had a lot of work to catch up on. So I do want to make a video tomorrow, but I just don't know yet, honestly. Sarge Tech says, we really appreciate what you do. Thank you again and again and again. Well, thank you, Sarge Tech. Douglas Burchell says 5 hours. Well, yeah, you got to remember, I've got to take the machines out of the box. I got to plug them in, right? I got to go through Windows Update. I got to clear out the temp files, make sure all the drivers are current, make sure the BIOS is set correctly. Each one of those takes about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how long it's been sitting without updates. Then I got to put it all back in the box. It all has to fit just right. They only go back in the box one way or you won't be able to close the box. And that box needs to go into a shipping box. And I don't have boxes laying around. So I have to find a box and I can't just reuse that box. I've got to take any existing labels off of the box or FedEx won't accept it. So if it's got a barcode on it, it's got to get removed. And some of those labels, they'll take the paper off before the label comes off. So that's why I like it when I could just go to FedEx and say, here, package these 3 computers and ship them here. Let the FedEx people do the work, but it doubles my cost. So then I'll be spending $100 or about $20 to $30 per machine for the packing and the box, plus the additional $30 to $40 of the shipping. By doing it myself, I can give out more. So, if I had an intern, or I could say, here, do my light work. Believe me, that would be awesome. And we could do even more giveaways. But in the meantime, there's 14 machines in total that we're giving away. Made 3 runs to FedEx last week, shipping 3 at a time. I don't want to take up any more time of the FedEx guy and the line that builds behind me and pisses everybody off. So I'd only do 3 at a time. And then there were 2 I ordered direct from Amazon. Those are the best, right? Because all I have to do is put somebody's address in and click send and it's done. But of course, they're not getting the machine optimized by me and updated by me, tuned by me. But on the other hand, I just click a button and it happens, which is way, way better for me. So in total, there's 3 more I've got ready, but they're not packaged up yet. So that'll be my last run to FedEx. That'll happen probably on Monday for 3 more PCs. And then that'll be 12 total that I've sent plus the 2 from Amazon. That's a total of 14 free PCs from the community and to the community. And there's still more. Like I still have more of these HP minis to give away. And I generate shipping labels. Oh, well, that's a whole nother ball of wax there, right? If I'm printing shipping labels, then I've got to have a certain kind of label maker or printer that can print labels. I've got to have a scale. That's just asking me to do more work. What if I do it wrong? What if I don't weigh it correctly? What if I'm overpaying for my shipping because I did it myself and I don't know what I'm doing? Or what if the box has batteries in it and I haven't properly labeled and they kick it back to me? So yeah, that doesn't, I'm not a shipper. This isn't what I do. I don't want to even do this. I work on computers and it's sort of a side effect that I've given some out. But I don't want to get good at shipping. It's not what I signed up for. So yeah. Thank you. If you like the content and you'd like to see more content like this, you can let the content creator know, which in this case, we're talking about me, by clicking that thumbs up button and hitting the subscribe button. I know I have a little graphic my sister made for me here in my OBS list. Here's the little banner for VIP CDK deals. And there's the like and subscribe right there. Yeah, if you like the content, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, hit that bell notification to turn on notifications anytime I go live. Like if I go live tomorrow, you'll be notified if you activate that part of YouTube, just so you know. Thank you for that reminder. And thank you, of course, to Camera Girl, who made the thumbnail we're using in today's video. And thank you to the folks at Minisforum for continuing to give us these opportunities to review brand new machines and to be one of the first reviewers to do so on this particular one. I'm always flattered by that, and I appreciate their consideration very much. And I like their machines a lot, I've got to tell you. Consistently really liking every Minisforum PC I've seen, I've liked. There are different prices and for different purposes. So within those borders, they've not disappointed me yet with a product. And all my friends in blue, thank you guys. And folks in white, I hope you guys will become a regular part of the community. And once we start to recognize your name and you're participating and showing kindness, I just turn you blue. That's how that happens. And for my friends that have the gold badge next to their name, these are members of the channel that pay $9.99 a month to help support the channel. Now, YouTube takes 30% of that and the government takes the other 20%. That leaves me, of your $9.99, I get $4 and we'll say $5 of it. So that helps me to be able to buy the materials that I want to review. And then I'm free to say whatever I want to say. instead of a manufacturer deciding whether or not they're going to send you a free product, right? And it's great when manufacturers do send the product in exchange for a review, and they appreciate an honest review. Most manufacturers don't want an honest review. Okay. Minisforum does, B-Link does, Ace Magician does, RoboForm does, Acronis does. If there's anything that I'm critical about, they don't say, oh, well, we're not going to work with you anymore because you pointed out a way that we could have made our product better, which when you think about it, is kind of an insane attitude to have. So do know that the companies that we're working with, they know what they're getting with me. They know they're getting honesty, and that I'm not just there saying, you know, root for the team, even if the team is not playing well. And they're not offended if I have a suggestion for improvement. The opposite, they appreciate it. And we appreciate them, and we appreciate that attitude. And more importantly, we appreciate that they make quality products that they stand behind, that they don't gouge people like, you know, Apple pricing. You know what I'm saying? Apple's a multi-trillion-dollar company for a reason. Take advantage of it. Big money. So in any event, that's just a little behind the scenes information for you. Thank you again for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday. And yeah, I don't know if I'll be live this weekend or not, but either way, I'll see you again very soon. Until then, bye for now.